Chapter 2089. Zihao is here to look for trouble, to seek revenge. This old man is not an unreasonable person, so I will not go against you. As long as he revealed his identity, I would have handed over the culprit. But that hateful Zihao actually concealed his identity and came here, purposely making us misunderstand and let us attack him first. Then, he took the opportunity to fly into a rage and completely wipe out my entire sect. Hateful! Hateful! Despicable! Shameless! The divine spirit continued to shout. Chu Jian thought to himself, looks like this old fellow is also the kind of person who bullies the weak and fears the strong. He stopped fighting once he revealed his identity? If he didn't reveal his identity, he became despicable and shameless? This is really shameful logic. Is this the legendary hooligan theory? If you have something to say, say it. Why talk about identity? It's obviously you who are despicable and shameless, but in the end, it's others who are hateful and despicable? What kind of logic is this? The hateful Emperor of the East actually stood aside and watched. He didn't help my sect at all. He even completely blocked off the news here. The divine spirit shouted agitatedly. Chu Jian thought to himself, Shui Leihan and Zihao are close friends. Why would he help you? He's already giving you face by not making a move. On second thought, he couldn't help but laugh. If I still have to trouble the two emperors to make a move together, that's really giving them too much face. Even if I die, I'll be famous forever. What are you laughing at? The divine spirit was very sensitive now. Seeing Chu Yang smile, he couldn't help but shout. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? Chu Yang laughed. It's rumored that the Emperor of the East, Shui Leihan, and the Heavenly Emperor of the Purple Clouds, Zihao, are sworn friends. That's right. Of course. That calamitous spirit's attention was instantly drawn. It roared furiously. Otherwise, how could he watch us perish and not do anything about it? This is collusion between officials and bandits. This is corruption and perversion of the law. This is black-hearted. Despicable Shui Leihan! Hateful Zihao! I heard that when the Heavenly Emperor of the Purple Clouds, Zihao, died in battle, Shui Leihan once had a conflict with the Saint Lord. Chu Yang said. The soul of the calamity held its breath in an instant. What conflict? The tone of its voice was somewhat cautious. I don't know. My status isn't high. But I heard that after that incident, the Eastern Royal Heavens and the Saint Lord became somewhat estranged. Chu Yang spoke without thinking. And just a few thousand years ago, for some unknown reason, the Saint Lord suddenly caused a ruckus because of this incident. In a fit of rage, the Saint Lord actually personally took action and fought a great battle with the Eastern Royal Emperor, Shui Leihan. Ah! The divine soul of the calamity cried out in alarm. How could there be such a thing? Suddenly, he hurriedly ran all over the place to vent the excitement and shock in his heart. There's actually such a thing. Ah! Awoo! The Eastern Sovereign and the Sage were battling. Courting death! Courting death! Courting death! This is too fun! Ha ha! The corner of Chu Yang's mouth twitched. To be able to gloat to such an extent, this guy is really something. His current appearance was completely different from when he first appeared. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Chu Jian would not have dared to believe that this evil-looking skull in front of him was that immortal-looking old man from before. Quick, tell me how they fought in the end! The divine soul of the calamity was extremely excited. One moment, it turned into countless skeletons, the next moment, it turned into a huge ghost head, and the next moment, it turned into black smoke all over the ground, twisting and changing constantly. One moment, it turned into a bee, and the next moment, it turned into a bee. Back then, I heard that the divine technique that Shui Leihan used as his trump card was called something like the Great Moon Technique. Chu Yang spouted nonsense. It's the Eastern Sovereign Sun and Moon Technique. The divine soul of the calamity hurriedly added. Then, the sage roared, Hey! Look at my chrysanthemum divine technique! Chu Yang was already rambling. What chrysanthemum divine technique? the divine soul of the calamity said furiously. It's the Red Cloud's divine technique. Yes, it's the Red Cloud's divine technique. The two of them fought for more than half a year. In the end, the sage was more skilled. The Eastern sovereign Shuai Leihan was scared out of his wits and fled with serious injuries. From then on, the Eastern sovereign heavens began to be suppressed. Batches of experts died. Chu Yang's saliva flew everywhere. Now, even someone like me has given me very high conditions. There's actually such a thing. Jiannan's divine soul was stunned and speechless, believing it to be true. In other words, see how is really dead. The soul of the calamity murmured. Of course. Chu Yang felt his spiritual power fluctuating more and more. His heart relaxed a little. But as soon as he said that, the soul of the calamity went crazy again. He shouldn't have died. Extraterrestrial demons are nothing. Zihao should have been killed by me. He should have been killed by me. You should be swallowed by me bite by bite. His soul should have been completely scattered, and he should have been consigned to eternal damnation in my hands. And Chu Yang could feel the effect, but he still couldn't do anything and couldn't move. He couldn't help but frown. It seemed that he had no choice but to take a risk. If you were given such a chance, are you sure you would be his opponent? Chu Yang suddenly mobilized his cultivation. This time, he used 100% of his bewitching power to suddenly ask this question. The soul of the calamity was stunned by this sudden question. Even his eyes were a little perplexed. This wasn't a trick. He was really bewitched by Chu Yang, but he was still immersed in the shock of the death of the heavenly emperor of Zishao. You weren't his opponent when you were alive that day, and even your entire sect was destroyed by him with a few sword moves. You actually want to kill him with your own hands? You're really indulging in fantasy, aren't you? Chu Yang's words became more and more vicious, and more irritating. Is it because you saw him die that you suddenly became awe-inspiring? You're really awe-inspiring. You bastard! Bullshit! Your mother's bullshit! The soul of the calamity stomped his feet and cursed. His expression was extremely ferocious. Countless skulls popped out like bubbles, and every mouth was cursing viciously. Senior, you're clearly seeing that he's already dead. No matter how awesome you say it, it's impossible for him to come and kill you. So, you're shaking your head. You're really awe-inspiring. This junior prostrates himself in admiration of you. The first half of Chu Yang's words seemed to be praise and criticism, but the second half of his words turned sharp. But what I admire is your despicableness, your shamelessness, your vulgarity, and your despicableness. As the saying goes, shamelessness is invincible in the world. You're invincible in talking now. What are you talking about? What did you say? What did you say? Can you say it again? The soul of the calamity was completely stunned by Chu Yang's words. He never thought that Chu Yang would dare to scold him like this in front of him. Not to mention now, even in the past, even when he was fighting Zihao, he had never been insulted like this. He was so angry that he was stunned. Why else would I say that you're invincible in the world? You're so thick-skinned. You actually want to hear it again. Unfortunately, I don't have the time. A coward like you. A villain who bullies the weak and fears the strong. A bastard with no moral integrity. A trash who specializes in hindsight. How can you still have the face to live in this world? If I were you, I would have found a crooked tree and hanged myself. Yes, it seems that this place is indeed not in this world. That's why you can struggle at death's door for so long. Even if I scold someone like you, it's embarrassing. Bah! Chu Yang was also completely throwing caution to the wind. If he didn't completely mess up the situation, he could only wait for death. Now, this guy's rage seemed to have begun to slowly subside. Once he really returned to his calm state, Chu Yang would really disappear from this place forever. The only way was to provoke him, and he had to provoke him completely. And the best way to provoke him completely was to start with the thing that he didn't want to face the most in his heart, and magnify it to the greatest extent possible. Otherwise, how could he provoke a super old monster who had lived for at least hundreds of thousands or even millions of years? Chu Yang's method was undoubtedly effective. In fact, it seemed to be very effective. The tribulation divine spirit was about to go crazy at this moment. He was so angry that black smoke was coming out of his head. Well, this wasn't an adjective. Black smoke was really coming out of his head. You're courting death. The tribulation divine spirit looked at Chu Yang and the sword spirit ferociously. I originally wanted to keep you for a while longer to relieve this old man of loneliness. I didn't expect you to be so reckless. Since you're deliberately courting death, this old man will fulfill your wish first. Don't worry, I won't kill you all at once. I'll kill you slowly and play you to death bit by bit. You're fucking giving me back. Chu Yang scolded him contemptuously. Even your body has been sent flying. All that's left is a cloud of fog. You still think you're a fucking human? Bah! Look at your ghost-like appearance. It makes me want to vomit. You still want to play old man? What old man are you using? Do you have that thing? Now that he was on the verge of death, Chu Yang was really going all out. What he should say, what he shouldn't say, what he could use and what he couldn't use, he used all of them. There was no other way. Who asked him to have no strength now? He could only rely on his mouth. The tribulation divine spirit was obviously extremely angry. He roared furiously and rushed overflowing with murderous intent. There was an awe-inspiring aura of death all around. Chu Yang kept provoking the tribulation divine spirit with his mouth, but in fact, he was burning with anxiety. Although the space seal had loosened a little, it still didn't open. A saint-level space seal was indeed extraordinary. Under such intense emotional fluctuations, even under the situation where he didn't care at all, it still didn't loosen. The tribulation divine spirit had already come close to him. With a hideous smile, he grabbed him with one hand. Little one, it's rare for you to scold so happily. Today, this old man will definitely let you enjoy the fun. In the many years that this old man has lived, I've had a lot of very special experiences. You'll also completely taste the unprecedented special treatment. In the future, you'll definitely experience a kind of extreme feeling in this world. This kind of feeling is called living a life worse than death, begging for death but not being able to. It was already close at hand. Chu Yang was still at his wits' end. The crisis was imminent. Chu Yang's mind suddenly moved. He suddenly closed his eyes and roared, "Big Brother Zihao!" Suddenly, he felt weak all over. A man's promise was easy to say, but it was really fucking hard to do. I'm slapping my own mouth now. Chapter 2090. The Divine Spirit was stunned. What? Chu Yang laughed. I didn't expect you to really believe it. It's so satisfying. Ha! You've been deceived. Do you really think that the heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud is dead? Ha ha! You childish bastard. He's not dead? The Divine Spirit's mind was in a mess. Not only is he not dead, he's behind you right now. Chu Yang roared. Big Brother Zihao! Kill him quickly! This is the best chance to kill him! His eyes stared straight behind the divine soul of the calamity. His face was filled with surprise and joy, as if he had just survived a disaster. The divine soul of the calamity shuddered and suddenly exploded. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? He suddenly rose from the ground and fled frantically. Back then, the heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud flattened the heavenly storm sect with one sword. The power of that sword had scared him out of his wits. He still had lingering fears. Although he was full of hatred and couldn't wait to kill his enemy, if the heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud really appeared, this divine spirit would definitely run faster than anyone else. After hundreds of thousands of years of loneliness, he had already forgotten the ways of the world. Chu Yang was in a state of absent-mindedness and extreme rage when he shouted. Moreover, Chu Yang had used his 100% bewitchment technique regardless of the consequences. So, he naturally became vigilant. At the same time, his heart became extremely flustered. Just as the soul and heart of the calamity fell into a state of panic, a gap suddenly appeared in the space seal that was originally seamless, and without any gaps. A gap finally appeared. Chu Yang was overjoyed. He struggled with all his might and shouted, "Go!" He reached out and pulled the sword spirit, who was locked and couldn't move from the beginning, into the space with unparalleled speed. The divine spirit turned back but found that the heavenly emperor of Purple Cloud wasn't behind him. He knew that he had been deceived and shouted angrily, "Stay!" The divine spirit's reaction was really fast. One of his hands turned into black smoke and chased after them at an unimaginable speed. He actually followed closely behind Chu Yang and the sword spirit. Before the space could close again, he followed them in. He grabbed Chu Yang's waist even more tightly. Chu Yang only felt a strong force pulling him. He didn't have the ability to resist. He was shocked. He shouted, "Sword spirit, you go first!" He knew that if he was caught this time, there would be no more luck. He reached out and pushed the sword spirit into the tribulation space, and was about to fly out with the big hand. Otherwise, if the divine soul really chased them into the tribulation space, neither of them would be able to survive. However, it was at this moment that an unforeseen event occurred. A miserable howl suddenly resounded from outside. Then, the unprecedentedly powerful pulling force disappeared in an instant. Because Chu Yang had resisted with all his strength earlier, he was still pouncing forward with all his strength this time. The pulling force disappeared too quickly. With a plop, Chu Yang slammed into the sword spirit. The two of them turned into rolling gourds at the same time, rolling far away in the tribulation space. There seemed to be a big black hand on Chu Yang's back. It was tightly holding Chu Yang's waist, but it was slowly turning into a black fog. For some reason, the giant hand formed by Calamity's divine soul was actually broken. It was as if he had been cut in half by a sword. Chu Yang was full of surprise. Who saved me? Who had such great ability to cut off the Calamity's divine soul's hand with a sword? But at this moment, the tribulation space had been closed again. Even if Chu Yang had heavenly guts, he didn't dare to open it again. He didn't even dare to look back at the outside world. The Calamity's divine soul's ability was really too terrifying. Who knew how high his spiritual sense was? Even if he was in the tribulation space, he might not be safe. Safety first. In fact, it was already a blessing to be able to reach this point. There was no need to take any more risks. Chu Yang subconsciously took a few breaths. His mind calmed down a little. Suddenly, cold sweat broke out all over his body. In an instant, his clothes were drenched. During this period of time, Chu Yang seemed calm and unperturbed. In fact, how could he not be afraid? It was just that he had been forcibly suppressing and enduring. Now, he was finally safe for the time being. Thinking back to the fear in his heart, he still felt as if his soul would scatter at any time. It was too close. It was really too close. Bean-sized beads of sweat trickled down from his forehead. His entire body was trembling. Even his hands were shaking. His face turned deathly pale. Then, it turned waxy yellow. Then, it turned ashen, and finally it turned deathly black. He had been changing his face for a long time, and he slowly recovered after a long while. The sword spirit was even worse than Chu Yang. The Calamity's divine soul's suppression on his power was several times more than Chu Yang's. After all, their characteristics were more similar. After entering the tribulation space, in the familiar environment, he finally recovered. His mind settled down. Moved, the sword spirit plopped down on his knees. "Lord Sword Master." For a moment he was choked with sobs. Although he was completely restrained from the beginning, it didn't affect his vision and hearing. Of course, when he saw Chu Yang even sacrificing himself to protect him, his heart was in turmoil. He couldn't calm down anymore. Chu Yang had always said that he treated the sword spirit as a brother. The sword spirit had always been moved. However, he couldn't help but doubt. Is this true? The previous sword masters only treated me as a sword spirit, a tool. Are you really that good? Or is it just a way to win me over? But at this moment, the sword spirit didn't have the slightest doubt in his heart. A sword master who could use his own life to fight for the sword spirit's life. A sword master who could do this. Even in extreme danger, at the last moment, he could still instinctively protect himself. What else was there to doubt? Chu Yang said weakly. Sword spirit, can you be moved later? I can't move now. I don't even have the strength to speak. Don't be moved first. I really don't have the strength to talk or argue with you. As he spoke, blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. When he was outside, his internal organs were continuously shaken by the calamity's divine soul's terrifying sound waves. In the end, he had to resist using all his cultivation to activate the bewitching power. Under the other party's unintentional but powerful reflection, even his body and divine soul had been seriously injured. It could be said that since Chu Yang's debut, he had never suffered such a serious injury. Being able to sit now was already the best he could do. He didn't even have the strength to speak. It was definitely not a lie. See if there's any way to get this big black hand off my waist. Chu Yang coughed. It's so stuck that I feel uncomfortable. Yes. The sword spirit hurriedly stood up. Seeing this big black hand that was gradually dissipating, the sword spirit's eyes shone with a dazzling light. A soul like the sword spirit was a great tonic for the calamity's divine soul. But on the other hand, the calamity's divine soul was also the best tonic for the sword spirit. It was just that the sword spirit wasn't a threat to the calamity's divine soul at all. In essence, it was just a matter of who was stronger. But there were no absolutes in the world. For example, at this moment, the half-arm that was stuck to Chu Yang's body was in a state of continuous dissipation. It was equivalent to a broken supertonic without any will or resistance. How could the sword spirit not be excited? Just by swallowing this arm, the sword spirit's cultivation would instantly double. Or even more. How could the sword spirit be polite? He fiercely and impatiently pounced forward. Chu Yang frowned, but he could clearly feel that the buckle on his waist was getting looser and looser. He kept thinking, what's going on? Why did the black hand suddenly break? Suddenly he had a flash of inspiration. Oh right, the calamity sword went out to collect elixirs and was always outside. Could it be the calamity sword's doing? But after thinking about it, he felt that it was unlikely. Although Chu Yang knew that the calamity sword was extremely sharp, it depended on who it was facing. With the current power of the calamity sword, it didn't seem to be able to deal with the calamity's divine soul at all. Not to mention cutting off one of the calamity's divine soul's arms. So, what was going on here? Chu Yang, who was chewing 2 heavy pills to treat his internal and external injuries, was puzzled. Well, I'd better try to recall the calamity sword now. If the calamity sword was lost here, my loss would be too great. Just as Chu Yang entered the calamity space, a sword light suddenly fell. Like a thunderbolt, it instantly cut off the calamity's divine soul's arm that had already entered the calamity space. The sword energy was so sharp that it was really unparalleled. It directly destroyed all the divine soul's vitality in that arm. The calamity's divine soul let out a tragic scream. It hurriedly retreated, retreating a full 3,000 feet. It opened its eyes in fear and looked in front of it. At this moment, it didn't even dare to transform into black fog again. Because this sword could actually devour. This was undoubtedly a strange sword. It shone with a cold light, as if there was a color that wandered back and forth on the sword. It could be said that its appearance was extremely good. The calamity's divine soul looked at this sword with extreme fear. It could clearly feel that this sword contained an enormous and unparalleled power. It didn't even feel this kind of power from the purple cloud heavenly emperor back then. The calamity's divine soul didn't doubt that this sword could easily destroy it. How could there be a divine sword with such power in this world? How was this possible? That sword was the calamity sword. The calamity sword shone with an awe-inspiring cold light. It swayed in front of the calamity's divine soul in a contemptuous manner. The sword tip was crooked, and the way it flew was disorderly. There was no order to it at all. It seemed that it could be easily knocked down by just reaching out. But the calamity's divine soul didn't dare to move at all. Not to mention moving, it didn't even dare to move half of it, for fear of provoking that divine sword. Its eyes followed the sword back and forth. The calamity sword's body shook, and a blurry shadow slowly appeared on it. Although the shadow was blurry, its eyes were filled with an unprecedented ferocious aura. It looked fiercely at the calamity's divine soul and said sinisterly, "Fuck! You sure have guts, you second-rate brat." Chapter 2091. The white-bearded elder in black stomped his feet and sighed. At this moment, he wanted to tear Yuan Shetu into pieces. How could such a strong person be threatened by others? You can beg him, you can admit defeat, you can even beg for mercy. But you absolutely can't be coerced. And you're using a woman that you snatched to threaten a super-strong person. This Yuan Shetu is really out of his mind. It was the most unsuitable path, but he had chosen to take it. Of course, the white-bearded elder in black was completely wrong. It wasn't that Chu Yang didn't want to negotiate, but he really couldn't hear anything now. Besides, it was too late for any conditions now. Because Chu Yang had already launched his ultimate move. Once this move was used, everyone present was destined to go to the Yellow Springs together. Chu Yang cruelly walked all the way. He swung his sword all the way, destroying everything in his path. He was invincible. Blood rained down from the tribulation sword. In front of him, there were still people. For the time being, there were still people. Behind him, there were all corpses. Along the way, a river of blood flowed behind them. Every one of them had died miserably as one could imagine. In front of Chu Yang, there were only 30 to 40 people left. Everyone's face was ashen. Even though everyone here was an expert among experts, and everyone had killed countless people before, witnessing this clean massacre with their own eyes today still made them tremble in fear. Especially when many of the people who were killed were at the same cultivation level as them. They couldn't resist at all and were slaughtered like chickens. Perhaps the next moment, or the next moment, it would be their turn. They would also die miserably like those people before them. Everyone felt like they were dreaming. It was a horrible nightmare that they never wanted to have. They all hardened their hearts. If they were lucky enough to survive today, they would definitely make Yuan Shetu's life a living hell. Damn it, this bastard is killing us. Yuan Shetu still grabbed Tai Batian and subconsciously retreated slowly. His face was completely drained of blood. He had already realized that he had really poked a hornet's nest this time. He had hit a super iron plate. He was already regretting it. But no matter how much he regretted it now, he couldn't change the fact. He couldn't save anyone's life. "Everyone, attack together!" The black-clothed, white-bearded old man shouted. "Now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. We can only fight with our lives on the line. Only by moving forward bravely can we have a chance of survival. Send some men to protect the young master. Hurry up and leave. Put that woman down, don't hold on to her anymore. If you bring her back, perhaps the entire ink-cloud sky will fall into a nightmare." The black-clothed, white-bearded old man nearly vomited blood as he cried out. If Yuan Shetu didn't have that identity, they definitely wouldn't care about it, and directly hand it over. But now, they absolutely didn't dare to do so. Even if he were to die this time, he wouldn't dare. Immediately, someone flew out to pick up Yuan Shulu. "Young master, let's go." "Leave? Where should we go?" Yuan Shu asked helplessly. "Damn it, put this woman down. I'm begging you." That person grabbed the unconscious Tai Batian and said angrily, "Run." He pulled Yuan Shetu and was about to escape. But at this moment, Calm's murderous aura suddenly rose sharply. That aura that could destroy heaven and earth also suddenly rose to the extreme. Everyone seemed to have suddenly fallen into a nightmare. They were muddle-headed and couldn't move at all. Cha cha cha. Chu Yang's footsteps sounded like a death knell. His cold eyes didn't move, and the cruel smile at the corner of his mouth was still as cold as a knife. In this world, who dares to snatch my woman? Chu Yang looked up to the sky and roared violently. Who dares? The members of the ghost hunter stood stiffly and couldn't move at all. They were like wooden statues, and they all had an urge to cry out loud from the bottom of their hearts. Although they had seen many deaths, but to be implicated and die in such a sullen manner was too unjust. Everyone had already received the news that such a big incident had happened here. Not only Ink Cloud Sky and the other two big sects had already arrived, even Yun Tian and Xue Xian had also rushed over. Looking at the hell-like scene in front of them, everyone kept quiet out of fear. Other than shock, there was only horror. In such a strange and infinitely terrifying situation, Chu Yan was directly the god of death that no one could resist. At this time, who dared to stand up for the ghost realm? Who dared to stand up for Yuan Shu too? That was directly seeking death. Not only seeking death, but also dying miserably, never to be reincarnated and beyond redemption. Even Mo Yuntian's other two big sects, after seeing this situation, everyone felt insecure and kept quiet out of fear. They were afraid that Chu Yan would implicate them. Who would dare to step forward? What's more, it was Yuan Shetu who was in the wrong first. He snatched someone else's woman, so he naturally had to bear the other party's revenge. Why would others take the blame for him? Why? Besides, whose woman couldn't he snatch? There were so many people in the world, and Yuan Shu too wanted to court death. There was nothing to say. No matter what he did, he had to pay a price. Yuan Shu too had never met such a tough person before. That was his luck, and of course, there was no price to pay. But it was different this time. Or it could be said that his luck had come to an end. Naturally, he had to pay the price in full. There was no suspense in this matter. Looking at the situation, Yun Tian's expression was unusually heavy. Chu Yan was only at the heaven level before. This was confirmed by many people. But now, his cultivation has suddenly increased by so much? It's actually so strong that even a heaven-level expert can't resist. Could it be that he had been holding back all this time? Did he really hide so much? So much? This is really hard to say. If his real strength is like this, it's reasonable that we can't see through it. The Sky Sword Union's elder beside him was shocked. It's just that, such a terrifying murderous aura is unheard of in this world. It's hard to say what Chu Ying's real strength is, but I think it shouldn't be to this extent. I reckon that the reason why he can be so strong now should be because he used some kind of mysterious secret method to activate some kind of powerful force for his own use. But we still don't know what it is exactly. We can only come to a conclusion after seeing Chu Yang's performance after the battle. Once this force is released, Chu Yang will die or be seriously injured. This means that although this force is powerful, it has a huge flaw or drawback. But if Chu Yang is safe and sound in the end, it means that Chu Yang's real strength has already reached such a level. His usual self is just a layer of disguise. The Sky Sword Union's elder's voice was heavy. If it's really the latter result, it means that Heaven Imperial Court has another expert who is almost comparable to Di Ho. Then, Heaven Imperial Court will be in a lot of trouble from now on. Yun Tian took in a breath of cold air. His pupils shrank. Please don't let it be the latter result. Otherwise, how could he compete with Chu Yang? Yun Tian said softly. If Yuan Shitu is really killed by Chu Yang, what will the consequences be? That elder smiled bitterly. This is foreseeable. With Yuan Shitu's identity, Mo Yutian will definitely face a disaster. None of the people from the two big sects who came here will be able to survive. Moreover, these three super sects will definitely suffer a great loss. Yun Tian frowned and said, What about Eastern Royal Heaven? That elder pondered. That will depend on whether Chu Yang is dead or not. But Chu Yang's forces will definitely be destroyed. Chu Clan's courtyard will become a pile of rubble. It's just a matter of time. If Chu Yang really borrowed the power of heaven and earth, after this battle, he will probably die until everyone in Chu Clan's courtyard is dead. If Chu Yang survives, the Eastern Royal Heaven will be plunged into a calamity. A catastrophe created by Mo Yuntian and Eastern Royal Heaven. Yuntian smiled and said, His Majesty Eastern Royal Heaven will also not tolerate it. If Mo Yuntian wants to behave atrociously in Eastern Royal Heaven, he's more or less still lacking. And Eastern Royal Heaven still has the advantage of being the landlord. That elder nodded and said, However, if Chu Yang doesn't die, how much attention will he receive? Yun Tian smiled relaxedly. No matter what, it's always a good thing for us to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. That elder took a deep breath and said, Yes, so we must get what we want as soon as possible and send it back as soon as possible. Yun Tian pondered and nodded slowly. At a place far away. Dreamlike veranda. Mo Qingwu inexplicably cried out in alarm. She had been practicing her martial arts. But her petite body suddenly fell from the sky without any warning. She felt a sharp pain in the pit of her stomach. She almost couldn't breathe. At this moment, her heart actually missed Chu Zhang endlessly. She missed him so much that she almost wanted to die. The next moment, her heart suddenly twitched with pain. Mo Qingwu screamed and fainted. While she was unconscious, Mo Qingwu seemed to have a dream. It was a dream that she didn't want to recall. She dreamed that she had returned to the purple bamboo forest in her previous life and was ambushed. Then, Chu Yang rushed over and fought her to death. Suddenly, Mo Qingwu's heart felt empty and sad. Suddenly, there was another wave of dizziness. It was as if she had changed into another space. There was no one in the surroundings. Everything was hazy and white. Is anyone here? What is this place? Where is this place? Mo Qingwu shouted. But no one answered. There was silence. It was frighteningly empty. Just as Mo Qingwu was feeling puzzled, she suddenly saw a figure in front of her. She focused her eyes and saw that Chu Yang had suddenly appeared in front of her. She was looking at him deeply. It was as if he had turned into an illusion. Chapter 2092. It didn't matter how strange Chu Yang's appearance was, as long as Chu Yang was here again. Before that, nothing else was important. Unexpectedly, Chu Yang didn't answer Mo Qingwu. Instead, he looked at her affectionately. He looked at her in an unusual way. It was full of longing, reluctance, and guilt. Chu Yang, what's wrong with you? Did something happen to him? You. Mo Qingwu instinctively realized that something was wrong. Taking a closer look, she realized that Chu Yang was covered in blood, and there seemed to be fresh blood dripping from his body. That was Chu Yang's own blood. Chu Yang was injured? Who hurt you? Mo Qingwu, who realized this, cried out in heartache. It was even more painful than if she were injured herself. She stepped forward, wanting to hug Chu Yang. But Chu Yang shook his head slightly and took a step back, avoiding Mo Qingwu. Qingwu, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Chu Yang's voice was full of affection and guilt. No, you don't have anything to be sorry about. Tell me, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Tell me. Mo Qingwu rushed forward quickly, but Chu Yang was always 3 feet away from her. They were so close, but it was as if they were at the end of the world. He just floated there, looking at her affectionately. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Chu Yang said softly. Qingwu, do you know how much I like you? Back then, you died for me, and I was so heartbroken. After the battle on the Wind Thunder platform, when I died, I had already completely repented. The most precious thing in the world is you, and I've already lost you. At that time, I swore that if there was a next life, I'd dance with you. I swore that if there was a next life, I'd only love you, I'd only like you, and you'd be my destined wife. Chu Yang said slowly. Mo Qingwu only felt waves of pain in her heart. She was a little flustered, as if the most beautiful thing in her life was leaving her. No, don't say any more. I understand. I only want you. Chu Yang, nothing else is important. As long as you're good, everything else is fine. I'm already very satisfied now, really, really satisfied. Qin Wu will accompany Jiuanqing. I'll never regret it in my life. No, I want to say it. Let me finish. Chu Yang's eyes focused on her face as he slowly shook his head. Ever since I was reborn in this life, I have made up my mind to protect you. I will do everything in my power to protect you. I will reverse our destinies. I will go against the heavens' will and accompany you for the rest of my life. I want to marry you and be together for all eternity. But in the end, I didn't keep my promise. I broke my promise again and again. I'm sorry, Qin Wu. I said that I wouldn't make you sad, but I didn't do it. Butian, that day was an accident. I didn't know that she was a girl. That day, I was drugged with an aphrodisiac. At the moment of my death, she saved me. She used her innocence to save me. Then, she gave birth to a son for me. I can't. Qianqian was deeply in love with me, but I didn't accept it. It was because of you. At that time, I only wanted to give you the most complete part of me. But I didn't think that I already owed someone too much. When Qianqian died to save me in the upper three heavens, my heart wavered again. Qin Wu, I'm sorry. It turns out that I'm also a sentimental person. Or maybe I don't deserve to use the word sentimental. Take it as me finding an excuse for myself. Chu Yang smiled gently. In his smile, there was affection, helplessness, and no regrets. Later, when I found out about Butian, I became even more confused. I also can't let her down. I have to bear the responsibility of a man. So, I have to let you down. This is unfair to you. As a husband, as a father, I don't think I can't bear the most basic responsibility to them just because I have to uphold the oath and promise I made to you before I died in my previous life. That would also be unfair. My final decision is to go against that oath. I'm only sorry to you. I once wanted to use my entire life to make up for my guilt and regret. I've also decided, no matter what, I'll make you happy, but I'm afraid I can't do it now. I've actually broken my oath once again. Isn't my integrity very bad? And Mo Qingwu's tears flowed down. I know, Chu Yang, I really know. I know everything. Although I'm also angry, and I've also lost my temper with you before, I really don't blame you. I cherish our 2 lives of love more than anyone else. Chu Yang, please believe me, I really don't blame you. Your sincerity is very good. I've always believed in it. I know. Chu Yang sighed with relief. He said with a bit of melancholy, I really know. I'm even more sorry that I can't even give you that most basic happiness now. I'm a terrible man. I'm going to disappoint you. And Mo Qingwu's body swayed. She suddenly felt as if her heart was breaking into pieces. You. What's wrong? What's wrong? Everything happened too suddenly. Butian was captured. I wanted to save her. But the enemy was really too strong. So strong that it exceeded the limits of my abilities. Butian, I used a forbidden technique that I can't use. I'm destined to die. It's coming. Chu Yang smiled and said, Qing Wu, don't blame Butian. Butian is also my woman. Qing Wu, for you, I can do anything. For you, I can disregard life and death. But for her I can also. I just hope you don't blame me. Please don't be angry with me. Chu Yang smiled and looked at her affectionately. His body slowly flew back, and his speed gradually increased. Qing Wu, in the future you must take care. You must take care. Don't go, don't leave me. And Mo Qing Wu screamed crazily. Her tears flowed like a fountain. Chu Yang, don't go. I'll listen to you in the future. I won't be angry with you. I can accept anything, just don't go. Don't go. It's too late. Chu Yang's blood-soaked body slowly blurred, but his eyes were still smiling affectionately. Qing Wu, I really love you. I'll love you forever. Don't go. You liar! You said that you'd accompany me forever. You said that you'd marry me. You said it, you solemnly promised it. Mo Qingwu chased after him crazily. If you dare to leave, I'll never forgive you. I will never forgive you for the rest of my life. Don't even think about leaving me alone. Don't go. Qingwu, take care of yourself. Chu Yang's body was like a ray of light. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared thousands of miles away. Qingwu, my most beloved, take care. His voice lingered in the air, and still reverberated in their ears. But Chu Yang's figure had already disappeared. Liar! You liar! Woo woo woo! If you dare to leave, I'll die in front of you. Don't even think about leaving me alone. Mo Qingwu scolded him crazily, wailing. Chu Yang, don't go. She suddenly woke up with a start, only to find her master looking at her with concern. Qingwu, wake up. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? Mo Qingwu looked around blankly, only to find herself lying on the bed. It turned out that she had a dream just now, a nightmare. But how could this dream be so real? She obviously didn't want to think about it at all, but all the scenes were vivid in her mind. She didn't forget a single detail. The feeling of the dream was completely brought to reality. Her tears were still falling, and the throbbing pain in her heart was still continuing. She was still terrified, still in despair. What's wrong with me? Why is it like this? Why did you suddenly fall down when you were fine? Are you hurt? The beautiful woman looked at Mo Qingwu worriedly. Mo Qingwu gasped for breath. Suddenly she jumped up. Master, I want to go out for a while. Go out? Where are you going? The beautiful woman was puzzled. Mo Qingwu, who was running out, suddenly stopped. She was at a loss. Yes, where am I going? Where is Chu Yang? I don't know at all. How can I find him? Where can I find him? Heaven and earth are vast. In the vast and boundless heavenly imperial court, finding a newcomer who just ascended was like finding a needle in a haystack. Mo Qingwu looked around blankly, only feeling that she was the only one in the world. Suddenly she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart again. She spat out a mouthful of blood and shouted, Chu Yang, don't go. She fell down stiffly. As long as you don't die, as long as you don't leave, I'm willing to give my life back to the heavens. What's the harm in exchanging a life for a life? Chu Yang, don't go, don't die. Mo Qingwu was unconscious. Her body kept convulsing. She kept calling out silently, calling out to the person on the other side of her heart, what happened to you? Jiangnan! Small courtyard. Zi Xiecheng got up in shock. Suddenly, her heart was in a mess. Somehow, there seemed to be someone talking, but it was so vague. She couldn't see clearly. She frowned and pondered. She wanted to see clearly, to think and understand, but there seemed to be a cloud of fog in front of her, covering her eyes and her heart. Her heart started to throb violently. Zi Xiecheng snorted. She bent down and covered her chest. Her eyes were full of panic. She realized that her heart was in a complete mess. What's going on? All of a sudden, she remembered something. It was at this time that, for some inexplicable reason, she thought of Chu Yang. She thought of the poem that she had left behind when she left. Hidden in the high clouds in the wind, I travel alone to the ends of the world. If we meet again in the clouds, I ask you to sweep away the fallen flowers in Jiangnan. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. She murmured, What happened? A voice said softly, The fallen flowers are like a dream, dreams are empty. The vanity of the mortal world, the fallen flowers and dreams. Big Sister Z, take care. In her mind, Chu Yang's figure disappeared quickly. Chapter 2093. A strong ominous feeling shrouded Zi Xiecheng's heart. She stood up in annoyance and paced back and forth in the courtyard. The more she thought about it, the more confused she became. She was at a loss. A young man in white suddenly rushed in. Miss Z, what happened? Zi Xiecheng frowned and said, What happened in the Heaven Imperial Court during this period of time? The young man in white scratched his head and said blankly, Where did it happen? I don't have any. Zi Xiecheng said impatiently. Then, the person I asked you to investigate last time, have you found anything? No. The young man in white was a little ashamed. But before he finished, he was kicked out by Zi Xieching. Although Zi Xieching's temper was a little irritable, she was usually very restrained. At this moment, for some reason, she suddenly couldn't control her anger. You can't even investigate one person, what kind of demon are you? The young man in white was confused. He was about to explain when he saw that Zi Xieching actually ignored him. She just frowned and muttered to herself. What happened to you? What happened to you? Lower three heavens. Palace. Emperor Taiyang suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with deep sorrow. What happened? What happened? Why? He suddenly felt that he was infinitely lonely, as if he had lost his greatest protection in this world and became an orphan without any relatives. Don't abandon me! The little emperor suddenly burst into tears. In another place in the Heaven Imperial Court, no matter what the Tribulation Brothers were doing, they suddenly became orderly and solemn at this moment. Mo Tianji threw out the copper coin of destiny and hurriedly calculated. Everyone felt uneasy and missed Chu Yang immensely. What happened? Cha. Chu Yang was still walking forward coldly. His footsteps were consistent and clear, just like an ordinary person walking. His eyes were calm and his face was calm. There was no fluctuation at all. He just walked forward step by step. But the Chu Yang now was so terrifying. He was like the death god walking in the mortal world. Everywhere he passed, there was only endless silence. The tribulation sword in Chu Yang's hand was actually shining with blood. After every step, at least 7 or 8 Ghost Clan experts would be killed and their souls would be destroyed. Brothers, I said that I would create a legend with all of you. It's a pity that I have to leave first. You have to be well. All of you have to create your own legends. Chu Yang's ashen eyes looked forward. Now there were only 5 people left. The 5 of them were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They looked at Chu Yang with fear and trembled. One of them was Yuan Shetu. Yuan Shutu was the young master of Mo Yuntian after all. Even though this incident was caused by him, as long as he was still the young master, the ghost hunter, and the others had to ensure his safety first. Even if they had to exchange their lives for his safety, they had to do it. This was the sorrow of the lower position. As for the other 3, they were the ones who had gone to the Chu clan's courtyard to cause trouble. The reason why they were able to survive until now was partly because of their strength, and partly because of their status. They were the few people with the highest status in Mo Yuntian's group, and also the strongest few. However, at that moment, the 3 of them all had ashen faces, and despair flickered in their eyes. Everyone else was dead. As the main culprits, they were at least accomplices. How could they be forgiven by this killing god in front of them? However, under such heaven-suppressing might, he could not even muster the slightest thought of resisting. He could only stretch out his neck and wait for death. This kind of feeling made people go crazy. In the 3 people's desperate eyes, Chu Yang strode forward without saying a word. He raised his sword and the sword in his hand fell down. The sword light flew up. The 3 strongest experts of the ghost hunters still had no room to resist. Their heads flew up high, and blood spurted out from their necks. Such a horrible scene made the scalps of Shui Xian Hai Bo and the other experts tingle. These 3 people are real experts, and they are definitely not inferior to me. However, these 3 people, the experts of the 3 experts, were killed without any ability to resist. Even if it was killing a chicken, there would be a struggle. However, when killing people, even this struggle process was omitted. The 300 to 400 people from the other 2 super sects who belonged to Mo Yuntian all turned pale. The thousands of people around them were all controlling themselves, and did not dare to let themselves make any sound. They did not even dare to breathe. Yuan Shutu looked at Chu Yang in horror. His whole body was shaking like an old sow sifting chaff. His heart was already filled with regret. Isn't it just a woman? Where can't I find her? Even if I can't find a purine body, I can find another one to replace her. Why did I have to provoke Chu Yang? I've already been killed by him once, and I still want to provoke him. I'm really looking for death, and I'm looking for death again and again. Spare me, spare me! Yuan Shu too retreated step by step in panic. He was already speaking incoherently. Other than these 3 words, he could not say anything else. Chu Yang held his sword and walked forward coldly. He was completely indifferent. The last of the 5 survivors was the black-clothed, white-bearded old man. Until now, he was still able to maintain his composure. It was obvious that his temperament was good. The old man sighed and said loudly, "Sir, we are indeed in the wrong in this matter. However, you've already killed so many people. I believe you've vented your anger. Why don't we sit down and have a good talk? If you're still dissatisfied, we're willing to compensate you. We can accept any price. We just want to appease your anger. How about that?" Chu Jiang looked at him coldly. He did not respond at all and continued to walk forward. The black-clothed, white-bearded old man took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Sir, you have to consider carefully. Once you do something, there's no turning back. Your cultivation is indeed earth-shattering, but my young master is not an ordinary person. My young master is—" Before he finished speaking, he saw a sword light flashing. The black-clothed, white-bearded old man looked at the long sword in disbelief. It was like a brilliant flowing light that could catch up with time. It crossed the boundary of time and space and pierced into his heart. Chu Yang did not allow him to finish his last sentence. Blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Chu Yang blankly and said, "You'll regret it. You'll definitely regret it." Whether the previous Chu Yang would regret it because of today's matter, this answer was uncertain. However, the current Chu Yang would definitely not regret it. Because the word regret was meaningless to him now. Chu Yang coldly held the long sword horizontally and cut open the old man's chest. With a swoosh sound, the old man's body turned into 2 pieces and fell to the ground. With a poof, it turned into black ashes. In front of him, there was only one Yuan Shetu. He was the last person of the Mo Yuntian ghost region. "Don't kill me." Yuan Shetu suddenly burst into tears and knelt down. "Don't kill me. I'm wrong. I won't dare to do it again." The sword light flashed. One of Yuan Shetu's arms fell down. With a scream, Chu Yang said coldly, "Snatching my woman?" This was the first time Chu Yang spoke since the start of this massacre. Yuan Shetu screamed loudly. His whole body trembled and his soul left his body. Poof! With another sword strike, Yuan Shetu's left shoulder also fell down. Chu Yang said lightly, "Rushing to my house to snatch my woman?" Yuan Shetu was already moaning and crying. He was saying something meaningless. The sword light flashed again. Both of Yuan Shetu's legs were broken at the knees. Before he could scream, Chu Yang had already pierced his crotch. He said coldly, "Even if you're dead, you're not qualified to be a man anymore." Everyone's scalp went numb as they watched, but no one dared to act rashly. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Chu Yang slowly dismembered Yuan Shulu bit by bit. Pieces of flesh flew out, and pieces of bones were picked out. They were picked clean, and placed on the ground one by one. But Yuan Shetu couldn't die for a while. He really couldn't die even if he wanted to. He could only howl and scream there. His mind was clear as he endured the bloodiest punishment in the world. Chu Yang stabbed his sword mechanically. At this moment, Chu Yang didn't have any specific thoughts at all. He only remembered one thing: this guy was his mortal enemy. At this point, the destructive force finally began to fade. Chu Yang also slowly felt that his body was a little weak. His mind that had completely disappeared before was also gradually recovering. His thoughts flashed through his mind, and he instantly understood the whole story. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He stabbed his sword into Yuan Shetu's throat. The power that he exchanged with his life was about to disappear. He couldn't let any change happen again. With a spin of the sword, Yuan Shetu's head flew up. Die! Then, the sword light flashed violently, and a bright light overflowed. Yuan Shetu's head turned into pieces in midair. His flesh and bones were all turned into powder. The killing finally came to an end. But the onlookers didn't relax at all. Chu Yang slowly turned around. His cold eyes slid across the faces of the experts who were watching the battle. No matter who he saw, that person couldn't help but turn his face away. This kind of ferocious and cruel gaze made everyone tremble in fear. In front of Chu Yang's chest, blood flowed out again from the huge wound. Chu Yang could clearly feel that his vitality and spiritual power were flowing away bit by bit. They were flowing away completely uncontrollably. He was about to leave this world again. Chu Yang smiled bitterly in his heart and thought, this life is really much stronger than the previous one. Since I, Chu Yang, started my career, what I care about the most is my family, my women, and my brothers. Chu Yang endured the dizziness. He looked at everyone's faces with cold and sharp eyes. He held his sword horizontally in front of his chest, looking down at the heroes and the world. Blood dripped from the tribulation's sword and fell to the ground. There was complete silence all around. This is my bottom line, Chu Yang said softly. Whoever dares to take a step forward will have the same consequences. He pointed the tip of his sword at the messy corpses in front of him. There was a pool of blood and flesh on the ground. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said indifferently, let's settle our grudges first. What's there to be afraid of? Shui Xian's face turned pale. Chapter 2094. Their two clans originally had an excellent opportunity to become friends with Chu Yang, but they chose to stay out of it. And now, they were being reprimanded by Chu Yang and even had to worry that he would settle scores with them. This feeling was so suffocating that it could drive one crazy. How did a pauper feel when he realized that a mountain of gold had slipped through his fingers? That was the feeling the two of them were feeling now. Not only that, they were also afraid that the mountain of gold would crush them to death at any time. Blood flowed faster and faster from the wound on Chu Yang's chest. That invincible power was also dissipating rapidly. Gradually, he couldn't hold on any longer. Chu Yang stood upright. Slowly, he felt that even his eyes were becoming a little blurry. He swayed a little and lowered the tip of his sword to support his body, not allowing himself to show any weakness. So, I actually can't bear to die there. Chu Yang laughed bitterly in his heart. Chu Yang! A shrill cry rang out. It was Tai Batian who had finally woken up. Seeing Chu Yang just standing there, she cried out in fear. Chu Yang finally relaxed. He raised his head reluctantly. Tian Tian! He only felt a violent wave of dizziness wash over him. He fell down as if a mountain of gold had collapsed. Tai Batian pounced over as if she didn't care about her own life. She hugged Chu Yang's weak body and said sorrowfully, how are you? You. Don't scare me. Your injuries. Heavy pill, where's the heavy pill? Tai Batian used her hands to cover Chu Yang's wound in vain, as if trying to stop the rapid outflow of blood. However, the blood continued to gush out, dripping from the gaps between her fingers. Tai Batian burst into tears. Her hands clutched Chu Yang's chest tightly, not knowing what to do. Don't die. Don't. Her face was full of tears as she shook her head frantically. The current Tai Batian didn't have any of the demeanor of a ruler. She was just a pitiful girl who was about to lose her true love. She didn't know what to do, she was in despair and sorrow. You're all right. That's great. Chu Yang's voice was extremely weak. But he smiled in satisfaction. I was afraid that I would be too late. I'm fine. Nothing must happen to you too. Absolutely nothing must happen to you. Promise me. Your medicine, hurry up and take it. Tai Batian burst into tears. I can't do it anymore. Chu Yang smiled like a child. I used my last move. It's a move that can take any enemy down with me. Even heavy pills won't be able to heal this injury. Tian, I'm sorry. I won't be able to protect you from now on. No! Tai Batian shook her head frantically. I need you to protect me. What I need. I will always need your protection. Don't leave me, don't be naive. Chu Yang said softly. Tian, you've always been a strong person. You must look after our family and our children. He forced his eyes open and looked at Tai Butian gently. When you see Qian and Qing Wu in the future, tell them to take good care of themselves. Tai Butian suddenly felt that her heart was suddenly empty. It became empty. The world around her disappeared. Only Chu Yang's words were left. Each and every one of them was like a huge hammer pounding on her heart. For a moment, she was suddenly at a loss. It was as if her body was also floating weightlessly. Actually, men should be like this in the first place. Chu Yang chuckled and looked ahead in a daze. But he could no longer see anything. Dying in order to protect is a worthy death, like a man. Don't cry, don't cry. I like your smile the most. Chu Yang forced himself to reach out. There was a smile on his face, as if he wanted to wipe away the tears at the corners of Tai Butian's eyes. His fingers were getting closer and closer, but his hand was halfway there when it suddenly fell limply. The smile on his face also suddenly froze. It didn't move anymore. Chu Yang. Tai Butian let out a heart-wrenching roar. But Chu Yang still maintained the smile on his face and didn't react anymore. Light flickered on the tip of the Calamity Sword, as if it was jumping. As if it was grieving. All of this indicated that the master of the Calamity Sword had fallen in the heavenly imperial court. Tai Butian looked on blankly. Suddenly, she smiled foolishly. Husband, the road to the Yellow Springs is long. Are you afraid to walk alone? I know you're not afraid. You've been afraid of anyone and everything in this world. But I'm really afraid to be left alone. Without you in this world, I'm really afraid. I'm afraid of everything in this world. Tai Butian said gently. She took the Calamity Sword from Chu Yang's hands and held it in her hands lovingly. The sharp edge of the Calamity Sword cut her delicate hands. Blood flowed out, but she didn't seem to feel it. She stood up slowly. She hugged Chu Yang. Chu Yang's body was huge and his legs were especially long. More than half of them hung in the crook of her arms. I, Tai Butian, was once the leader of the world. But I'm still a woman with a husband. Tai Butian's expression was perplexed but firm. I have my own husband. No matter where he is, whether he's dead or alive, I'll accompany him. How can I let him walk alone in the Yellow Springs? A wife treats her husband as her sky. When my husband dies, my sky will collapse. Tai Butian smiled miserably. Since the sky has collapsed, what's the point of living? What's the point of dying? Husband, I can't care about others and I don't want to care. But I'm really afraid. Please take me with you. Tai Butian smiled miserably. She raised the Calamity Sword and stabbed it into her own heart without hesitation. Life and death follow you. The Calamity Sword suddenly flickered with a dazzling light. Thick blood gushed out from Tai Butian's chest. Much of it flowed into the wound in Chu Yang's heart and merged into one. Tai Butian held the Calamity Sword with both hands and stabbed it into her own chest. She hugged Chu Yang and slowly sat down on the ground. She gently placed Chu Yang's body on top of her, afraid that it would hurt him. Let's go together. Let's go together and never be separated. Tai Butian grabbed her unfathomable phantasm jade and crushed it with a loud smack. The ordinary-looking woman on the stage immediately disappeared and was replaced by a peerless beauty who could topple countries. Tai Butian smiled sweetly. When did my husband become so proud? It's too embarrassing for him to accompany him with such a face. At this moment, I'm showing my true face to the world to accompany him to the netherworld. She lowered her head slowly and looked at Chu Yang's face affectionately. She said lovingly, "Let's go together?" Her body trembled slightly and suddenly stopped moving. The Emperor of Iron Cloud was going to walk with her lover. Everyone around was so shocked that they were speechless when they saw this soul-stirring scene. Yun Tian bit his lip and watched Tai Butian commit suicide. A hint of regret and guilt flashed across his eyes. Then, he secretly exhaled. Chu Yang's sword technique was indeed a forbidden technique that would end in mutual destruction. This terrifying enemy of his was finally dead, but did he die in his own scheme? The others also had different expressions and emotions. When Chu Yang used his heart's blood to destroy all tribulations, the sword's spirit was completely useless. At this moment, the sword's spirit was in the tribulation space with a resolute face. If that's the case, if the tribulation sword master can't break through the heavenly tribulation, do I have to start all over again and serve another mediocre tribulation sword master? After Chu Yang, who else in this world can be worthy of my attention? Moreover, this is my brother. He saw me as a brother and treated me with sincerity. Now that he's dead, how can I just disappear with the tribulation sword? Wait for the next reincarnation? Forget it, I'll go with you. The sword spirit lay down slowly and gathered his nirvana divine fire in the depths of his soul. He was just waiting for the tribulation sword master to die and the tribulation space to collapse. Then, he would also disappear. He wouldn't stay in this world anymore. The sword spirit sneered. If such a person can't do it, who else can? I won't serve you anymore. I've lived for so many years with my brother. I've had enough. In the tribulation sword, the shadow tore his hair anxiously. How can this be? How can this be? How can this be? If he came out first, Chu Yang wouldn't have died. But after Chu Yang used his heart's blood to destroy all tribulations, even if he came out, it would be too late. It would be useless. Using my heart's blood to destroy all tribulations was an irreversible ultimate forbidden technique. If it wasn't for the high price, which required the exchange of all life, how could the person who used this technique have such unimaginable and terrifying power? Even if he came out, he couldn't change the fact that all tribulations were destroyed. At least, he didn't have the ability to do so. According to his knowledge, there were only 2 people in the entire universe and the chaotic sky that were capable of turning such a situation around. But those 2 people weren't here now. In other words, Chu Yang was dead. In the distant starry sky, on a blue planet, a white-clothed young man who was fishing by the sea seemed to have noticed something. His gaze passed through the endless space and he muttered to himself, "You are also like this? Not bad, not bad." Beside him, a beautiful woman who didn't seem to be from this world asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Continue fishing, haha." The white-clothed young man smiled and moved the fishing rod in his hand. He couldn't help but laugh. A big fish has taken the bait. The beautiful woman beside him couldn't help but roll her eyes. With your cultivation, if you want to catch fish, you don't even need to blow. At most, you just need to glare, and all the fish in the sea will float up with their bellies facing up. But now you're actually fishing here slowly, and you're so excited after catching a fish. Who are you trying to fool? Only a ghost would believe you. The beautiful woman rolled her eyes and wrinkled her delicate little nose. She snorted and turned away. This flirtatious way of rolling her eyes made the white-clothed young man stunned. He looked at her lecherously. The fishing rod in his hand slipped out of his hand and was dragged away by the fish in the sea. Chapter 2095. Heaven Imperial Palace. Outside Purple Cloud City. Chu Yang and Tai But Ian hugged each other as they collapsed together. The blood that flowed out of their hearts gathered together, and flowed in a meandering manner. Seeing this scene, everyone slowly heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, that terrifying aura that made one's heart tremble completely disappeared. This terrifying person was finally dead. Fortunately, he was dead. Otherwise, this world would probably be in chaos. At the side, Yun Tian, Mo Lu, Zi Huang and the others' expressions were even more complicated. Seeing one of their old enemies die in front of them, and in such a heroic and domineering way at that, all of them had mixed feelings and were indescribable. There was only one thing to be thankful for: they finally didn't have to fight against this terrifying person. However, they were more or less disappointed in their hearts. Clean up. Yun Tian heaved a long sigh. Although Chu Yang is dead, but he is still a man worthy of our respect. Help him to be buried properly. Suddenly, a voice that was accompanied by a faint smile rang out. "Who said he is dead?" Everyone was startled. Then, they realized that a white-robed person had appeared at the scene unknowingly. No one realized how he had appeared. He had suddenly appeared here, as if he had always been here from the beginning to the end. This white-robed person stood in front of everyone with his hands behind his back, blocking everyone's line of sight from Chuyang and Tai Butian. All the experts, including those who were facing this white-robed person, could only see his back view. There was a layer of faint white light on his body. Through this white light, only a figure could be seen. Even his figure couldn't be seen, let alone his face. This was originally a situation that shouldn't have happened, but it had happened just like that. Everyone even had an inexplicable feeling that this was how it should be. It was as if this was how it should be. Many of the people present were tyrants of the current era. They had strong minds and instantly sensed that something was amiss. They subconsciously used their divine senses to spy on the white-robed person in front of them. However, they shockingly discovered that this person had an extremely tight layer of defense on his body, which blocked off all divine senses from prying. Anyone who tried to spy on him would feel an intense pain as if their divine senses were being burned by fire. A wave of intense fear instantly attacked everyone. A pervert had just died, and now another one like this had appeared. They were both indescribably powerful. No, although Chuyang was strong, there was still a limit. He probably hadn't surpassed the limit of a saint. However, this white-robed man was truly unfathomable. He was far beyond the scope of everyone's knowledge. The white-robed man picked up Chuyang and Tai Butian's body with one hand, and grabbed Tai Butian with the other. Then, he insipidly said, "Everyone should go back early. Help me inform everyone that tonight's auction will be changed to tomorrow night. All the rules will remain unchanged." Then, he straightened his body, and disappeared without a trace with a whoosh. Just like that, he casually jumped into the air and disappeared just like that. Only corpses were left on the ground. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Everyone had seen it clearly, but they were all puzzled. Chuyang and Tai Butian were clearly dead. Moreover, their souls had been scattered. The auction definitely needed Chuyang to preside over it. But Chuyang was already dead. So, how could there still be an auction? Also, that white-robed man had clearly said that Chuyang wasn't dead. However, thousands of eyes here had seen that he was completely dead. How could he still be alive? Could it be that everyone's eyes were blind? For a moment, everyone felt a little dizzy. Of course, the most dizzy thing was, who exactly was that white-robed man? Why did he suddenly appear here? Moreover, he was so ridiculously strong. So unfathomable. On infinite boundless mountain, a white shadow flew over at high speed. There were so many people on the mountain, but no one had noticed it. That person's speed was really too fast. It had already exceeded the limit of what humans could sense. At most, in a thousandth of an instant, the white-robed man had already reached the top of the mountain. The long sword that was sealed under the soul-suppressing stone shone with a cold light. Without any warning, it was pulled up automatically. That white shadow didn't say anything and grabbed Chuyang and Tai Butian's bodies and flew in. The long sword of the sword intent was pulled back again. Everything returned to normal. It was as if nothing had happened. Perhaps it was because everything had happened too quickly that no one had noticed the difference between the two of them. Under the soul-suppressing stone, in the land of the God Source, Jie Dan's divine spirit was flying here and there. Chuyang and that extremely terrifying fellow had already left. Wasn't he the one who had the final say here? At least, he had peace. There was no god of plague around. Just this benefit alone was enough. How comfortable was that? Although it was definitely a little lonely here, it was still better than being ravaged by others, right? After the previous incident, Jie Dan's divine spirit, who was originally excited and couldn't wait to get out, felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. For a moment, even his heart turned cold. Although he didn't have that organ now, he still felt a chill in his heart. It was no different from the past, It's really too dangerous outside. A random heaven-grade puppet already has such a terrifying backer. I don't know what even more terrifying things are out there. I'd better stay here. Just as his thoughts were running wild, a gust of wind suddenly appeared in the sky above him. Wind? Jia Dan's divine spirit looked at the sky suspiciously. There hasn't been any wind in this space for so many years. Why is there wind now? What's going on? Then, he saw that the fellow who had just gone out not long ago had returned. And he was lying on the ground without a sound. When Jia Dan's divine spirit saw someone, he was suddenly shocked. Tears were about to burst out of his eyes. Although he didn't have any tears, he still subconsciously transformed his soul power into soul liquid to express his excitement. In an instant, he felt as if hundreds of thousands of grass mud horses were galloping through his heart. Ancestor! You! Why are you back again? It's not fun here. Didn't you take all the good things away? Why are you back? It's not that I don't welcome you. Didn't you see my tears of excitement? I was so excited to see you back. But there's really nothing left. When he went forward to take a look, he was shocked again. Oh my God, how did this happen? How did it become like this in such a short time? As far as the eye could see, Chu Yang's eyes were tightly closed. There was a smile on his face, but he wasn't breathing at all. If he wasn't breathing, it would be fine. But there wasn't even the slightest fluctuation of his divine spirit. This meant that the matter was serious. This was a sign that he was completely dead. Moreover, his divine spirit had been destroyed, and he was beyond redemption. Jia Dan's divine spirit wailed loudly. Soul liquid flowed out of his body as if it was free. Ancestor! You are my ancestor! If you want to die, don't die in my place. How do you want me to explain this? If that evil god ancestor sees you like this, I don't know what he will think. This is going to take my life. Heavens, earth, don't play with me like this. Save me. The tribulation divine soul's current state of mind was fully reflected in the last 3 words. Following which, with another sound, another body fell from the sky. This time, it was a woman. This woman was an outstanding beauty. Even in this situation, Jia Dan's divine spirit still felt that she was breathtaking. But unfortunately, she was also not breathing. Her divine spirit was also gone. She was also a corpse, the kind that couldn't be more dead. What a pity! Jia Dan's divine spirit clicked his tongue repeatedly. Such a beauty, but there's actually someone who is willing to destroy her. What a bastard, What did you say? A voice said with some surprise. Oh, so it's you. I didn't expect you to really cultivate Jia Dan's divine spirit. Not bad, not bad. Really not bad. Although there's one more, it doesn't matter. Jia Dan's divine spirit's hair stood on end. He turned around like a whirlwind. Not far behind him, he saw a white-robed man standing with his hands behind his back. He was looking at him with a gentle smile. Oh! Heavens! Jia Dan's divine spirit sat down on the ground. With a pa sound, his eyes exploded and turned into 2 clouds of black smoke. This was really too unexpected. Too shocking. This white-robed man's face was gentle and elegant. He was wearing a long robe. His hair was as black as ink. His face was like jade. He had 3 strands of black beard on his chin. His nose was like a hanging gallbladder, and his eyes were like shooting stars. He was really a talented person. In addition, his whole body exuded a very obvious scholarly demeanor. He was really elegant, and people couldn't help but have a good impression of him. However, in front of such an amiable and nice person, Jia Dan's divine spirit was already scared out of his wits. Beep 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 beep. Little brother. Jia Dan's divine spirit was so scared that he was stuttering. Beep beep beep. Emperor. G. That white-robed man sighed. It's really been hard on you. It's been so many years, and you actually still remember how I look like. How rare. Facing the person in question, The spirit of the calamity no longer had the arrogance he had when he was scolding Shui Lei Han and the heavenly emperor of purple clouds in the morning. Instead, he lowered his voice and bowed with a fawning look on his face. Beep, beep, beep. Little brother. Lord Celestial Emperor's elegance is even greater than before. This is still fresh in my memory. Hee. I won't dare to forget even for the rest of my life. This white-robed man was undoubtedly Shui Lei Han, the Emperor of the East. He nodded. With that amiable expression, he asked gently, Don't tell me you still hate me and want to take revenge on me? If so, this is a good opportunity. I'm really too busy. It's rare that I have time. Chapter 2096. Shui Lei Han frowned. Why was this guy so obsequious? What was he talking about? They didn't match at all. What was he talking about? He remembered that this guy still had some strength of character when he was alive. Why did he seem like a different person now? He couldn't help but frown and ask, Are you really Mei Shangren? The divine spirit nodded and bowed. Yes, I am. The Celestial Emperor has a good memory. After all this time, you actually still remember my lowly name. The Celestial Emperor is wise and mighty, unparalleled in the world. Shui Lei Han asked in confusion. Back then, you were already one of the top experts in the world. Although you died back then and became the divine soul of the tribulation today, the divine soul of the tribulation can still be cultivated. But why did you cultivate to the point where you don't even have a bit of backbone? I see that your cultivation isn't weak now either. It was impossible that cultivating would actually cause one to lose one's backbone. The divine spirit of the tribulation nodded and bowed, saying obsequiously, What does this little bit of cultivation of mine count for? How can it catch the Celestial Emperor's eye? It's not worth mentioning. As for that backbone, I don't even have any bones now. What backbone do I have left? Besides, what use is backbone in front of the Celestial Emperor? Shui Lei Han was exasperated. This guy was really direct. But even if he didn't have any bones, there shouldn't be such a huge change. He can even drag me into whether I have a backbone or not. Damn it! Could it be that you encountered some changes during this period? Shui Lei Han recalled what the divine spirit of the tribulation said when they first came in. He asked, Oh right, why did you call this brother of mine a little ancestor? The divine spirit of the tribulation trembled all over. Extreme shock and incomparable shock shot out from his eyes. Little brother? What? So this little ancestor was the little brother of His Majesty the East Emperor? A living ancestor. My dear ancestor. The divine spirit of the tribulation was stunned. You didn't think it was enough for you to trick me once. You still want to trick me a second time. Not only did you trick me when you were alive, you still want to trick me when you're dead. And it's even more ruthless than the last time. Speak, what exactly happened? Shui Lei Han asked. Calamity Ko beheld the thought that nothing could be more sorrowful than death, so he decided to be a bachelor and murmured, He came in this morning. Shui Lei Han understood at once. That's nothing. Didn't he not die in your hands? The spirit of the calamity instantly burst into tears. He had never expected Shui Lei Han to be so easy to talk to. A thought of a gentleman would die for his bosom friend arose in his mind. He said, Lord Celestial Emperor, you are really wise and well-versed in worldly affairs. You are really too reasonable. Shui Lei Han was a little puzzled, but seeing that it was about time, he said, Forget it, it's really too tiring to talk to you now. Now go and walk around somewhere else. I'll treat my brother's injuries first. This place is a little quieter. I'll borrow it for a while, then I'll leave when I'm done. Yes. Feel free to use it. Please don't hesitate to use it. Tribulation's divine soul bowed gratefully and left at lightning speed. That's great. I didn't expect the Emperor to be such a good person. Why didn't I realize it before? I actually scolded him previously. I really shouldn't have done that. But that little one was really too ruthless. He clearly had such an extremely powerful bodyguard, and he was actually sworn brothers with the East Emperor. This background. Oh my God, what kind of person is this? This kind of person came in pretending to be weak and small, and almost made the old man vanish in a puff of smoke. Even a person who pretended to be weak and pretended to be weak wouldn't be as ruthless and thorough as you. Shui Leihan arranged Chu Yang and Tai Batian side by side. He shook his head and sighed. What a pair of fools. Sighs so cute. I like it, I admire it. So, ever since Tai Batian was snatched away, Shui Leihan had been following everything that happened here. He saw everything that happened. It was only until Chu Yang said with my heart that he finally heaved a sigh of relief. He intervened and brought the two of them over. If Shui Leihan wasn't confident, how could he allow Chu Yang to die in front of him like this? Shui Leihan knew Mo Qingwu. In the previous life, Shui Leihan was a mutual friend of Mo Qingwu and Chu Yang, and a very good one at that. In the beginning, he also felt a little uncomfortable when Chu Yang became a little fickle. But after understanding the whole story, he felt relieved. Now that he saw Tai Batian die for Chu Yang with his own eyes, he finally completely accepted this brother-in-law of his. Looking at Chu Yang and shaking his head, Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. It really wasn't easy to force you to use this move of with my heart. As he spoke, he grabbed Chu Yang's hand and placed it next to Tai Batian's. Their palms faced each other, and he murmured. Before she died, she self-detonated the fifth supreme martial artist's sovereign qi. She was really determined to die. Forget it, I'll let this sister-in-law bask in your glory as well. Then, he grabbed all the heaven-nourishing jade from the tribulation space. I've prepared this for 10,000 years. It's finally time to use it. Brother, do you really think that the one who can mend the heavens on the path of 3 lives is your little lover? The consequences of misunderstanding the prophecy are still quite severe. Even if it's serious, there will be rewards for your efforts. Now, the rewards are here. The path of 3 lives mends the heavens. It's Tai Batian who mends your heavens. It's also a mutual mending of the heavens. You used a man's responsibility to mend her path of 3 lives. She used her steel-like true feelings and the sovereign qi of a human emperor to make up for your previous inadequacies. She forcefully reversed your own path of 3 lives. This is what it means to mend the heavens on the path of 3 lives. A plan has been laid out for 10,000 years. The heaven-nourishing jade is like this, and so is Tai Batian. Even the great miracle medicine is like this. Everything is to mend your heavens. With a light smile, he took out a jade bottle from his bosom. The moment this jade bottle was taken out, the divine spirit of the tribulation, who was already very far away, looked over in astonishment. Inside, this jade bottle was still in a state where it hadn't been opened yet, but it was already releasing an unusually strong spiritual energy, causing this quiet realm of the divine source to be stirred up for a moment. What kind of treasure was this? It actually had such an amazing effect. When that expert left behind the tribulation sword that day, he also left behind this heaven and earth creation pill. Shui Leihan was somewhat reluctant to part with it. He stared at it for a long time. Brother, if not for the fact that I really can't afford to offend him, I would have eaten this heaven and earth creation pill long ago. It's better to give it to myself than to give it to anyone else. Sigh. But it's also not bad that I can keep this bottle. At least I didn't work for nothing. Shui Leihan sighed. He opened the bottle reluctantly and poured out a snow-white and round pill. The moment the pill was taken out, it instantly emitted a gentle white light. In an instant, the spiritual energy of the entire realm of the divine source suddenly surged over like a tsunami. It gathered here and rushed into the pill without any regard for its life. The speed at which the spiritual energy gathered was so fast that it actually drew out a clear shadow in the void, letting out a sharp whistle. In the distance, the white bones all over the ground collapsed. The bones that were originally undamaged for 10,000 years were all turned into fine powder at this moment. The spiritual energy howled and turned into a wild dragon that swept across the heavens and the earth. It rushed toward the heaven and earth creation pill madly. And the small heaven and earth creation pill actually turned into an ocean that could contain hundreds of rivers at this moment, swallowing all the spiritual energy that swept over. Seeing this sudden change, as the person involved, Shui Leihan was also greatly shocked. In the past, only pills were taken out to emit spiritual energy, but this was the first time he saw a pill that actually gathered spiritual energy after being taken out. In the blink of an eye, the majestic spiritual energy that had been accumulated in the realm of the divine source for hundreds of thousands of years had already thinned by at least half. After that pill absorbed a huge amount of spiritual energy, it became even more white and sparkling. It actually seemed as if there were mountains, rivers, the sun, the moon, and the stars rotating inside, vivid and lifelike. It's really good stuff. As expected of the heaven and earth creation pill. After having it for so many years, I still have to give it to the fated person in the end. Sigh. Shui Leihan didn't dare to delay. As he grumbled, he pinched open Chu Yang's chin and placed this one and only heaven and earth creation pill into Chu Yang's mouth. Then, he sat down cross-legged and pressed a hand against Chu Yang's back, waiting for the pill to take effect. Poof! Suddenly, a very strange sound came from Chu Yang's stomach. Then, Shui Leihan discovered to his surprise that the big hole in Chu Yang's chest, that fatal wound, had mysteriously disappeared just like that. Where the wound was originally, the skin was smooth and tender. It's really effective! Shui Leihan praised from the bottom of his heart. Then, he saw that Chu Yang's body was emitting a fluorescent white light. That white light seemed to be jumping around like flames. The white light gradually extended along Chu Yang's body and slowly extended to Tai Butian's body. The wound on Tai Butian's body also healed in an instant, leaving no traces behind. The next moment, the white light became even brighter and even enveloped Shui Leihan. Shui Leihan only felt that his body was actually purified by this white light at this moment. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. This white light can actually purify even my body. Shui Leihan knew that his body in cultivation, to put it bluntly or honestly, had already reached the pinnacle of the heavenly imperial court. Under such circumstances, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that his body was indestructible for eternity. Not to mention purifying his body, just to let his blood and qi circulate for one more cycle was also a rare and miraculous medicine in the heaven imperial court. And this medicinal pill was actually able to completely purify even his own body. This was equivalent to opening up the path to the great Tao for him. I'm basking in Chu Yang's limelight. The next moment, Chu Yang's meridians that had clearly been solidified earlier suddenly started to roll like lava from a volcano. They kept bulging outwards. And the same thing was happening to Tai Butian's body. The next moment, with a loud bang, the meridians in both of their bodies shattered at the same time, until they couldn't be any more shattered. Chapter 2097. A majestic white light traveled between the two people's bodies at an extremely fast speed, following the old path. It traveled through the path at an unimaginably fast speed. Then, Shui Leihan realized that the two people's meridians that were previously completely destroyed had actually been repaired. It's indeed the heaven and earth creation pill. It really has the ability to steal the creation of heaven and earth. It's really impressive. Shui Leihan was so shocked that he was speechless. Indeed, if it's not a spirit medicine that steals the creation of heaven and earth, how can it be called the heaven and earth creation pill? It lives up to its name, and lives up to its name. Creation. I've also finally understood a little of the true meaning of the word creation. Just as his meridians were reconstructed, Chu Yang's cultivation that had originally dissipated actually reappeared, once again turning into a turbulent flow of air and traveling through his meridians. This change was even more shocking. In the path of cultivation, one's cultivation would be lost when the body died. This was originally the law of heaven and earth. Shui Leihan had previously judged that the heaven and earth creation pill's ability to bring the dead back to life was already a miracle. But he had never expected that this pill's miraculous effect was not only that, but also that it could actually restore one's cultivation. Thump thump thump, The two people's hearts that had long stopped beating suddenly started beating again. And it was an abnormally healthy and strong beating. The white light dissipated abruptly, turning into a torrential spiritual energy that surged through Chu Yang's body. Although it was also moving according to a fixed path, such a huge amount of energy was enough to make Chu Yang explode more than 10 times. 100 times. A few hundred times. Shui Leihan let out a soft cry. His abnormally rich cultivation slowly flowed out, helping Chu Yang temporarily resist this torrential spiritual energy, allowing it to be injected into Chu Yang's body in an orderly manner. No wonder that mighty person wanted to leave the pill in my hands. So this is the reason. In the heavenly imperial court, there are only a few people who can resist such a huge amount of medicinal energy. Making use of people is indeed thorough, making the best use of everything and people. Shui Leihan pondered as he circulated his energy. As for why it can only be used after 10,000 tribulations have collapsed, I'm afraid it's because of the word creation. Shui Leihan pondered as he channeled his energy. Slowly, he realized that the medicinal effects were once again the opposite of ordinary medicinal effects. Generally speaking, the medicinal effects of elixirs would at most be great, but the more they were used, the lesser the medicinal effects would be. However, this heaven and earth fortune pill defied common sense once again. Its power was getting stronger and stronger, and it was continuously pouring into Chu Yang's dantian. As a result, the pressure on Chu Yang's dantian was also getting bigger and bigger. He didn't dare to let his imagination run wild for a moment, and started to circulate his martial power with all his might. Judging from the current situation, if he didn't go all out, he might even get hit by the enormous medicinal power. In a certain corner of the realm of God's source. Looking at the drastic change in the scene, the Calamity Soul wanted to cry but had no tears. More than half of the spiritual energy in the place where he had lived for hundreds of thousands of years had suddenly disappeared. How was he going to live in the future? This injured fellow was indeed a jinx. He seems to be the bane of my existence. The moment Chu Yang closed his eyes, he clearly felt that he was rapidly being pulled out of his body. He had completely lost all sense, perception, and connection with the entire world. Then, he realized that he seemed to have seen a lot of people in that instant. He saw Wu Qianqian, who was bawling loudly. He saw Mo Qing Wu and even said goodbye to her. He saw Zi Xieching, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. He even went to the lower 3 heavens to take a look. Then, he went to the upper 3 heavens to take a look. Other than that, he also saw countless people. It didn't matter if they were related to him, he just saw them. Then, he realized that he seemed to be completely unable to move. His entire body, or rather his consciousness, was wrapped in a ball of light that was filled with starlight. He was floating and couldn't go up or down. Chu Yang was puzzled. Why does this seem to be different from the previous time? What's going on? Isn't the consequence of using the myriad tribulations technique to destroy one's spirit and soul, and completely turn into ashes? Why does it seem like I still have consciousness? Could it be that I've been reborn again? But this situation doesn't seem to be the case. Then, he noticed that the ball of starlight rippled, and a graceful figure walked in. She had beautiful eyebrows, phoenix eyes, rosy cheeks, black hair like clouds, and exquisite curves. She was so beautiful that she could topple a city, and it was difficult to describe. She was peerless and peerless. It was Tai Batian. Why are you here? Chu Yang was puzzled. If he remembered correctly, he was already dead, the kind that was completely dead. Now, he should only be a dissipating soul body. There was a possibility that his spirit and soul would be completely destroyed at any time. This was the inevitable consequence of using the myriad tribulations technique. Although Chu Yang was unwilling to accept this result, he could still face it calmly. After all, he had saved the person he loved. But Tai Batian was also here. Didn't that mean that it seemed like he was the one who had died? Chu Yang. The moment Tai Batian saw Chu Yang, she instantly dashed over in surprise and hugged him tightly. Husband, you're not here anymore. I'm scared. How can I get used to a world without you? Chu Yang never expected that the domineering empress who had always appeared as a strong woman, who had once controlled the world, who could turn the world upside down with a wave of her hand, who could make the world tremble with a command, who could infuriate her beauty, would actually say something like this one day. Scared? Was there anyone or anything in this world that Tai Batian was scared of? It didn't seem to exist? Chu Yang sighed. You killed yourself? Just like that? Tai Batian didn't speak. She only looked at him affectionately, her eyes dazed and unblinking. There was actually an indescribable sense of relief and joy in her heart. It turned out that one could really be reunited after death. It's great that I've seen him again. Silly girl! Chu Yang held her in his arms and sighed softly. Tai Batian smiled and lay quietly in Chu Yang's broad embrace. There was a look of infinite satisfaction on her face. Now that things had come to this, there was no point in saying anything else. At the same time, it was also completely useless and meaningless. In reality, Tai Batian had committed suicide for him this time. Chu Yang was also extremely touched and heartbroken about this. To most people in this world, living and dying together was always just a sentence. It was just a simple sentence. In fact, from a certain perspective, this sentence was just a formality. There were simply too many people in this world who had said this sentence before. This was especially true when men and women made solemn vows of undying love to each other when they were deeply in love. The frequency of this sentence being used was even more extreme. But how many people could really do it? Tai Batian had never said anything like this to Chu Yang before. But today, she had skipped this process and directly done it. Other than you, I don't want anything else. Other than you, I can even abandon this entire world. A world without you is no longer worth my lingering feelings. Moreover, the current Tai Batian had completely abandoned all her reservations and everything about herself. She had become a lovable and clingy young lady who was immersed in her lover's embrace. She was simply enjoying the bliss of being together with him. Although they were both in soul form, Tai Batian was already very satisfied to be able to hug him like this. Even though she didn't know how long this hug could last, in any case, it was enough. You came very quickly back then. He didn't have time to humiliate me. Although she felt that it was a little too late to say all this now, Tai Batian still said it. Even if I'm dead, even if I'm just a soul, even if I'm about to dissipate, I want him to know that I'm clean. From head to toe, from beginning to end, I only belong to you alone. I know all about it. Chu Yang smiled. Although this guy was lustful, you always had a way to delay him. If it were me, you wouldn't be so lucky. Tai Batian's face flushed red. She rolled her eyes at him and said, Pooh, is there anyone in this world who's more lustful than you? I really regret it. Why was I so foolish as to sacrifice myself for you? If I was given another chance, Chu Yang's expression turned dim. I'm the one who dragged you down. Tai Batian's expression changed drastically. Her face turned as pale as paper. She said in an extremely anxious and trembling voice, I was joking just now. I was really joking just now. It's just that. I just wanted to anger you a little. Really? Chu Yang turned around instantly and chuckled. I was also joking. How could you bear to leave me? Tai Batian's face turned from pale to red. She buried her head in Chu Yang's arms and refused to raise her head again. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, Tian, there's no one else here anyway. Since both of us are already dead and our souls might completely dissipate in the next moment, why don't we try dual cultivation? No matter what the outcome is, at least one wish has been fulfilled. Tai Batian couldn't suppress her embarrassment at once. However, she said gently, You're my husband. Of course, you have the final say in this matter. Chu Yang, I'll listen to everything you say. Whatever you say, it'll be done. Chu Yang perked up and was about to start. If he wanted to do it, he'd do it. Time would pass by in seconds. Aren't you worried about them at all? Tai Batian suddenly asked. Chu Yang was stunned. He subconsciously stopped what he was doing. There was a hint of melancholy on his face that couldn't be concealed. He said, "Of course I'm worried. But is there any use in worrying?" Tai Batian also fell silent. Yes, was there any use in worrying now? After all, they were already dead. Seeing the melancholy on Chu Yang's face, Tai Batian said with heartache, "I'm sorry. It's all because of me." "No," Chu Yang said indifferently. "It's because of me. The word sorry should be said by me. No matter what, it shouldn't be said by you. When a man marries a woman, he has the obligation to take good care of her and make her happy. This is a man's responsibility in the first place. It's because I'm too weak to protect all of you. This is all my fault. What has it got to do with you?" Chu Yang sighed deeply. "I'm a man." Tai Batian looked at him in a daze. Her heart couldn't help but tremble. Man. Before this, the word man was just a common concept in people's minds. But now, Tai Batian finally understood what exactly the word man implied. It turned out that a word that could be casually said actually carried such a heavy weight. If one were to measure it according to such standards, then how many men in the world would be worthy of her? Chapter 2098. Shui Leihan sighed softly. In a flash, he appeared in the sky above Xia City, at General Lan's military camp. Lord East Sovereign's sudden appearance shocked General Lan and all the generals in the tent. After everyone paid their respects, Shui Leihan dismissed all the generals, leaving only General Lan alone. "I have urgent matters to attend to and need to return to the palace immediately," Shui Leihan said softly. "You have to watch over this place." "Yes." General Lan was stunned. Only now did he know that His Majesty had been here all this while. Luckily, he didn't act rashly. "Your Majesty, if Mo Yutian comes, what should we do?" General Lan asked. Shui Leihan said lightly. "You only have to remember one thing. This is the Eastern Royal Heaven." "Yes." General Lan took a deep breath. He already understood His Majesty's meaning. "If Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun comes personally, what should I do?" General Lan asked again. After all, Mo Yuntian coming was different from Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun coming personally. The treatment was naturally different too. "This is the Eastern Royal Heaven." Shui Leihan's voice was still light. This answer was obviously the same as before, but the domineering aura it contained made General Lan's heart skip a beat. "If Yuan Tianji doesn't come, you can act according to the situation. If Yuan Tianji comes personally and I can't make it back in time, you can act according to your discretion." Shui Leihan's eyes flashed coldly. Acting according to the situation and acting according to the situation were two completely different concepts. Great General Lan undoubtedly understood this point. "Yes. Even if it is, don't go overboard." "Yes." Shui Leihan frowned. After a long time, he said, "As long as it's possible, I'll rush back as soon as possible." General Lan made a sound of agreement, but huge waves surged in his heart for a long time. His Majesty actually wanted to participate in this dispute too? Didn't this indicate that there was a high chance that his side wouldn't be able to resist? In other words, a huge war was about to break out between Mo Yuntian and the Eastern Royal Heaven? In history, as long as two heavenly emperors really went against each other, it would be a war between the two worlds. Such a battle had only happened once in the history of the heavens. That time, the two worlds fought until the sky was red. Could it be that His Majesty was really determined to go to war? But why? General Lan was confused. It seemed that His Majesty East Sovereign and Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud didn't have any deep enmity. Although there were some conflicts back then, it seemed that he joined forces with Heavenly Emperor Purple Firmament, see how, to beat up Yuan Tianji. They didn't suffer any losses. Why would they start a war this time? General Lan's doubts were destined not to be answered, at least for the time being. Because Shui Leihan had already left. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared without a trace. Great General Lan's heart trembled, and he immediately passed down the order: cancel all leave for all personnel, and prepare for war. However, before Shui Leihan left, he didn't mention that he wanted him to help Chu Yang. It wasn't that Dong Wang didn't want to mention it, but that he couldn't. Shui Leihan would also have his own concerns. If he directly instructed Great General Lan to focus on someone, the nature of this battle would completely change, and it would be disadvantageous to Chu Yang instead. Or rather, this action would attract the attention of some people. He only knew that Great General Lan would definitely understand what he meant. For hundreds of thousands of years, General Qilan had never let him down. The East Emperor Shui Leihan was undoubtedly a wise man, but even a wise man would make a mistake. Because this time, Great General Lan just didn't understand it. He only knew that His Majesty the East Emperor was determined to start a war with Mo Yuntian. This made Great General Lan, who was already extremely warlike, feel his blood boil. He didn't care about Chu Yang at all. Perhaps in the eyes of Great General Lan, although Chu Yang was the target of this incident, and also the target of Mo Yuntian's operation, but when it came to identity, the most important identity he had was just Yen Russian's little friend, or at most a brother who had similar interests. How could he be worthy of too much attention? At least, he wasn't worthy of Great General Lan's attention, much less the East Emperor's. It was just that Great General Lan would never have dreamed that the East Emperor's arrangements today were all because of this small character Chu Yang. If he could protect Chu Yang, then the two great worlds wouldn't have to go to war. On the other hand, if he couldn't protect Chu Yang, Shui Leihan would definitely declare war on Mo Yuntian first. Chu Yang was already Shui Leihan's last hope, and also a great trust that Shui Leihan definitely didn't dare to neglect. If Mo Yuntian really destroyed this hope, Shui Leihan would definitely not hesitate to fight. He would rather die together with Mo Yuntian, and make Mo Yuntian pay the heaviest price. But Great General Lan was ignorant of all this. Shui Leihan left, and at the same time, he took away Chu Yang's greatest reliance. Chu Yang was equally ignorant of all this, but this wasn't a big deal, because Chu Yang had never counted on Shui Leihan to help him. He only knew that he had to use his own strength to get through this crisis. After all, only his own strength was the most solid and reliable reliance. And now, Chu Yang was already in the city lord's residence, trying to obtain the thing that he had been dreaming of since he arrived at the heavenly palace. This time, the city lord's reception could be said to be extremely courteous. He couldn't help but be courteous, because Chu Yang had already become a person that the city lord absolutely couldn't afford to offend. Not to mention anything else, just any one of those high-ranking subordinates of his could casually give the city lord a small blow, and the city lord wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Divine Dr. Chu, ha ha ha, Brother Chu, I'm honored by your presence. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. The city lord came out to greet him enthusiastically. Well, today is the last treatment for Big Brother. After this, Big Brother's ability will be completely stabilized. At the very least, there won't be any problem for the next few decades. If you take good care of it and don't squander it excessively, I believe that there won't be any problem for hundreds of years or even, ha ha. Chu Yang laughed. Really? That's great. I'll have to rely on you for this. Originally, the city lord was somewhat uneasy in his heart, but when he saw Chu Yang's amiable demeanor, he let go of his worries and poured out his grievances. Brother, you don't know, these past few months have been really unbearable. I have never seen such a grand scene in more than half of my life. Now, they're right in front of me, and I can't afford to offend any of them. The city lord chattered on. Chu Yang listened with a smile, and didn't have the slightest impatience. To be honest, he really understood the city lord's feelings. The official position of city lord, and the desolation and remoteness of Xixia city, destined that the city lord's situation wouldn't be the same. In the past, even if he saw a heaven-level expert, he would have to ponder and think carefully. Recently, he suddenly saw so many ridiculously high-level experts, so high that it was completely beyond his knowledge, and almost all the super sects had gathered in his territory. How could he not be flustered? It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't flustered. Oh right, Brother Chu, do you still remember the Hua clan? The city lord smiled mysteriously. How can I not remember? We have some history between us. A cold light flashed in Chu Yang's eyes. How could he not remember the Hua clan of Jiangdong? It was this guy who got the treasure map of the God Source realm, which could be said to be the fuse of this soul-suppressing stone incident. And they had once framed him in every possible way, and tried to assassinate him several times. When he had the chance, he would naturally settle the score. However, with his current strength, wouldn't it be too much of a bully if he went to look for their family? What a dilemma! Just a few days ago, there was a battle outside the city. The two sides of the battle were a group of Jianghu gangs, and they intercepted another group of people. I sent people out to investigate, and it turned out that the Hua clan was attacked, and they suffered heavy casualties. So, I drove the bandits away and brought them back. However, the experts of the Hua clan of Jiangdong have all died in this battle, and the few who survived are all injured. The city lord said. Oh. Chu Yang smiled faintly, and didn't say anything. The Hua family of the River East only exists in name after this battle. The experts of the family have been killed or injured. There is no chance for them to rise again. The fourth master of the Hua family, whom you and I had dealt with before, was lucky enough to preserve his life. But one of his hands and one of his legs were chopped off. The city lord said indifferently, I had heard that he had sent someone to assassinate you. Now, as long as you say the word, everyone in the Hua clan will be beheaded in an instant, and no one will be left alive. Chu Yang closed his eyes and was silent for a while. Suddenly, he smiled and shook his head lightly. Big brother, if I'm in my current position, don't you think it's a little beneath me to make things difficult for fourth master Hua? The city lord smiled. Brother Chu's words have touched my heart. Indeed, at Chu Yang's current level, if he still insisted on making things difficult for a small character like fourth master Hua, it would really make others think that he was too narrow-minded and didn't have a big vision. In the end, what was fourth master Hua? In fact, what was the entire Hua clan worth? The Hua clan of Jiangdong had been developing for thousands of years, but it was still just a small clan. But Chu Yang's hard work in less than half a year had already shaken the entire Heaven Imperial Court. The power he possessed was enough to destroy any large sect that wasn't a super sect. Between the two, there was no comparison at all. Even finding trouble with the Hua clan was an action that lowered one's status. If the Hua clan wasn't so unlucky, it would be reasonable for Chu Yang to find trouble with them. But now that they had fallen to the extreme, what was the point of stepping on them again? Now, let's treat Big Brother's injuries first. Chu Yang began to prepare those things. As for those people from the Hua clan, let them fend for themselves. The city lord nodded. Brother, you're magnanimous. You're right. Chapter 2099. The city lord laughed heartily. Brother, you are speaking like an outsider. No matter how useless your brother is, I am still the city lord. As long as it's a matter of this purple cloud city, I can still make the decision. Do you think this matter is easy to handle or not? While Chu Yang was mixing the herbs, he said indifferently. Then I'm counting on you, big brother. To tell you the truth, I intend to do it in one step. If I want to do it, I want the best. I want the Purple Cloud Mansion. Big brother, do you think it's convenient? Xixia King's Mansion. The city lord paced forward and said in a low voice. Brother, if you want any other place, I can give it to you directly. However, this Xixia King's Mansion is not ordinary. Although I can make the decision, I'm afraid you will have to pay more or less. Chu Yang was happy in his heart, but he still maintained this indifferent attitude on the surface. He said, Big brother, you are straightforward. This little brother owes you a favor. Just name the price. This little brother will do his best. I won't make things difficult for you. This Xixia King's Mansion can be considered the most valuable mansion in our territory. A few thousand years ago, someone once bought this Xixia King's Mansion, but that person didn't have a good ending. At that time, the price was already 1,000,000 Xixia coins. This is something that everyone knows. Big brother, I can't do anything about it. The city lord took a deep breath. So, brother, you have to raise the price. It can't be that it was 1 million a few thousand years ago, and it's still 1 million now, right? This needs to be reported to the higher-ups. It's not something you can make the decision on your own. Chu Yang straightforwardly said. This little brother has already expected this. Just state your price. I won't bargain with you on account of your golden face. The price will be quite high. I really can't say it. The city lord frowned. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. It will hurt the feelings between us brothers. It's okay. I'm very rich now. Chu Yang acted as if he was rich and overbearing. But in reality, he had already made up his mind when he heard the city lord say, You can buy it. More or less, you have to fork out some money. Brother, as the big brother, it's really hard for me to ask for this price. No matter how you look at it, it has to be at least 20 million. The city lord's voice was as heavy as lead as he said with difficulty. Purple cloud coins! Brother, this is a sky-high number. As far as I know, in the entire Heaven Imperial Court there are no more than 20 million? Only 20 million? I'll buy it. Chu Yang immediately decided. Only 20 million? Chu Yang finally couldn't hold it in anymore. This is too cheap. It's as cheap as cabbage. The city lord was still intending to earnestly persuade, console, and pacify her, but when he heard this sentence, he swallowed back his words. He looked at Chu Yang dumbfoundedly. After a long while, he quivered. You bought it? Yes, isn't it just 20 million? Chu Yang looked at him with some surprise. How much is this? You can prepare the procedures later. I'll pay it all in one go. From now on, the Purple Cloud Palace will belong to me. How much is this for? 1 by 1, in one go? The city lord's mouth was now even wider than a hippopotamus. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you really sure? Of course. Can't I make the decision for such a small matter? Big brother, you underestimate me too much. Chu Yang nodded vigorously. The city lord felt as if he was going to faint. His body actually swayed, but he managed to stand firm. For a moment, his heart was in chaos. 20 million purple cloud coins! This is purple cloud coins! Wait, the city lord finally confirmed with a trembling voice. He asked carefully, Brother Chu, I said purple cloud coins just now. 20 million purple cloud coins. Yes, I'm talking about purple cloud coins. I didn't say water cloud coins or purple cloud coins. Chu Yang looked at the city lord in surprise. It's purple cloud coins. Isn't it just 20 million purple cloud coins? There's absolutely no problem. I originally estimated that it would be 30 to 50 million, or 70 to 80 million. I didn't expect it to only be 20 million. Big brother, I'll remember your kindness. The city lord covered his forehead. He took a few steps back and sat on a chair, gasping for breath. He only felt as if millions of legendary mythical beasts were roaring in his heart, circling back and forth. 20 million purple cloud coins, what kind of concept was that? The city lord's mind was in a mess. He couldn't calculate at all. He only felt that his breathing was rapid, and his heart was beating violently. 20 million purple cloud coins. If the city lord knew that the amount of purple cloud coins that Chu Yan had prepared to use to purchase the Purple Cloud Mansion was not 20 million, but 200 million, he would definitely faint on the spot. It was even possible that he would die. To be honest, 20 million purple cloud coins was really not much to Chu Yang. It was really cheap. At this moment, not only was the city lord's mind in a mess, even Chu Yang's mind was in a mess. Only 20 million! Why was it only 20 million? These were definitely Chu Yang's heartfelt words. He had prepared 200 million purple cloud coins just to buy this house. Now, he actually bought it for a mere 20 million purple cloud coins? I'm not dreaming, am I? If I knew that I could buy it with 20 million purple cloud coins, would I have spent so much effort to hold the auction? Was there a need to sell all those good things? This is really fucking depressing. The two of them were obviously in a daze. They were temporarily in a daze. Until a maid came to refill the tea for the nth time, until the tea had lost all color, the two of them finally came back to their senses. Little brother is really rich, the city lord sighed. Sa, I think so too. It's really cheap. Chu Yang grinned and continued to make the medicine. He even stopped making the medicine because he was in a daze. Let's get down to business. That was the city lord's lifelong happiness. When he walked out of the city lord's mansion, Chu Yang had one more thing in his pocket. The title deed of the Purple Cloud Palace. He finally got it. From today onwards, Chu Yang was the owner of the Purple Cloud Palace. Chu Yang took a deep breath. After coming to the heavenly imperial court for so long, this was the only good news that could make him really happy. It was also something that could be used by the Tribulation Sword, the Great Elixir, and the Purple Cloud Tower. I wonder if from today onwards, all the misfortune will leave me? Since Chu Yang had lived 2 lives, his journey was really smooth. Looking back, he forged the heavenly weapon, gathered the tribulations, supported the Taiyuan, overturned the Zhaojiang, destroyed the heavenly demon, defeated the Dharma Supreme and Jingzhong. Such achievements could be said to be the first in the history of the heavenly imperial court. However, once he ascended and arrived at a higher plane, he was filled with ambition. However, he was met with disaster after disaster. He had died several times and survived. Several disasters fell from the sky. Some even lost their lives. It was really unbearable to look back on the past. Until today, at this very moment, Chu Yang could finally feel that the haze that had been hiding in his heart was finally going to disappear completely. He was really excited to the extreme. It was as if he didn't even care about the impending great crisis of Mo Yuntian. Chu Yang didn't even go home. He went straight to the Purple Cloud Palace. He flashed his identity card and the title deed to prove his ownership. Then, he dismissed all the guards in the Zixiao Palace. You can go back to where you belong. Anyway, you can't stay here any longer. After confirming that everyone had left, Chu Yang coughed deliberately and walked in like a little fool. Wahahaha. I'm coming. Inside the Purple Cloud Palace, it was a scene of decay. Countless flowers and trees had already withered, but there were also countless new weeds growing and sprouting. Chu Yang looked carefully and slowly felt that something was wrong. Because there were some trees that could grow up to thousands of years old. They had obviously lived long enough here and died. But there were many such trees around. They all died of natural causes. But how could the spiritual energy of the same piece of land support so many trees squeezed together, and all of them died of old age after they grew up? This was impossible. But this impossible thing was happening now. Chu Yang's heart was full of doubts, but he didn't have time to think about it now. He kept walking forward and saw a door in front of him. The words, "Forbidden Area," were written on it. The 2 words "Forbidden Area" were not rare. As long as it was a big family, they would usually have their own forbidden area. And the concept of forbidden area was not the same. However, the 2 words "Forbidden Area" in front of Chu Yang's eyes gave Chu Yang a heartfelt killing intent. It was an awe-inspiring killing intent that prevented anyone from entering. But as the owner of this place, Chu Yang couldn't be stopped by his own forbidden area, right? He had never heard of a forbidden area that didn't allow the owner to enter. Taking a step back, Chu Yang's original intention of buying this place was to uncover the secrets of this place. The more forbidden and secret a place was, the more necessary it was to explore. Almost without thinking, and with his identity as the owner, Chu Yang went forward and pushed the door. But he found that he couldn't move it at all. Even with Chu Yang's current strength and cultivation of saint level, he still couldn't move it. The next moment, Chu Yang suddenly flew out. He fell straight for more than 100 feet and landed on the ground. His whole body was in pain. In fact, during this process, Chu Yang had thought of using his spiritual energy to resist, or to let himself fall steadily and safely. But he discovered that he couldn't mobilize the spiritual energy in his body at all. So, he could only let himself fall freely, and fall awkwardly here. What the fuck is going on here? Is my bad luck still not over? It seems that I've been thrown out like this for the third time. Isn't this too bad? Chu Yang lay on the ground and stared blankly at the door. He was confused. Fortunately, the moment he landed on the ground, his spirit force had already returned to normal. After adjusting his breathing a bit, the pain disappeared and there wasn't even a scratch on his skin. He slowly got up and carefully walked to the door. He stared at the two words, "forbidden area," for a long time. Finally, Chu Yang found a very important thing. Chapter 2100. The last line of words on this tablet was obviously added at the end. The handwriting was definitely not verbose. As the current medicine king, I should pass down this legacy to the world. Unfortunately, there are rumors of extraterrestrial demons wreaking havoc. We discussed and decided to abandon this place and slaughter all the demons. I will not return until the demons are exterminated. Seeing this line of words, Chu Yang suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. Extraterrestrial demons. Extraterrestrial demons again. Since ancient times, how many heroes and heroes had disappeared from the world just to slaughter the extraterrestrial devils? And this medicine king had gone just like that, and now, he had yet to return. His ending could be imagined. Could it be that the demons could not be exterminated? On the other tablet, the handwriting was full of hostility. Chu Yang had seen this kind of handwriting before. It was the handwriting of the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zihao himself. I, Zihao, am fortunate to have this palace of the medicine king. I will definitely bring it to greater heights. And for the medicine king, I will exterminate all the demons. Seeing this, Chu Yang could not help but sigh. The palace of the medicine king was built by the ancient medicine king. It contained the art of immortality, the art of gold core, the art of creation, the art of heavenly fortune, and so on. There were dozens of miraculous cultivation methods that humans had no chance of seeing. Any one of them could change the fate of the person who was fated with it, turning the rotten into the miraculous, turning the absurd into the legendary. And it was precisely because the medicine king sensed the ambitions of the extraterrestrial demons that he crossed the heavens with a few brothers to exterminate the demons. Unfortunately, he did not return. And before he left, he seemed to have realized something and left his legacy in the human world. He also left a spark and a hope for the future. The heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zihao's words were very clear. Zihao himself was the successor of the first king of medicine. He was the first person to place his hopes on. It was after Zihao obtained the divine palace of the medicine king that he began to rise rapidly. Using the Jin Dan technique, the art of creation, and so on, he grew into a celestial emperor in an extremely short period of time. And he did not go back on his promise, and indeed fought with the heavenly demon until the last moment of his life. The only regret was that the heavenly emperor of purple clouds still could not change the hearts of people. In the end, he was defeated by the despicable side of human nature. If that is the case, the problem of the extraterrestrial demons has been around for a long time. If it wasn't for the medicine king and other seniors who went to eliminate them, the development of the heavenly devil would have been even faster. Tian Ke would have been in an unknown state by now. In other words, although the medicine king and the other seniors had not returned, they had successfully delayed the footsteps of the extraterrestrial demons for millions of years. Their sacrifice is of great value, but this value is only reflected in the lives of the common people. To them, it is sorrow and betrayal. Chu Yang said in a low voice. What I said is reasonable? Isn't that a little too extreme? The sword spirit pondered for a while and said, No, this is the truth. These seniors shed their blood and cut off their heads for the sake of the people of the world. In the end, how many people in the world will remember those seniors who sacrificed themselves? Chu Yang laughed coldly. Later on, the purple cloud celestial emperor fought against the extraterrestrial demons with all his strength. Although he was destroyed in the end, I believe that he still greatly damaged the vitality of the extraterrestrial demons. As a result, the extraterrestrial demons can only occupy the purple cloud celestial heavens, and have not made any further moves to expand. I even suspect that it is not that they do not want to expand, but that they do not have the strength to continue. Is it appropriate for me to understand it this way? Chu Yang asked again. Even if there are discrepancies, I believe that it is not much different from the truth. The sword spirit nodded vigorously. How many years has it been since the Purple Cloud Celestial Emperor died? Chu Yang asked. It should be close to 1,000,000 years. The sword spirit sighed. 1,000,000 years is enough for them to recuperate and accumulate strength. After this period of recuperation, the extraterrestrial demons should be about to recover their vitality. They might have even recovered their vitality. They are not moving for the time being, just waiting for an opportunity to launch their attack. In other words, the extraterrestrial demon tribulation of the Heaven Imperial Court is about to come again. Chu Yang's voice was heavy, and a sense of crisis rose from the bottom of his heart. The sword spirit also said heavily, "Sigh, although I am very unwilling to admit it, judging from the time, it is indeed about time. 1,000,000 years of accumulation is enough to erase any losses." Chu Yang sighed deeply and bowed in front of the 2 tablets of the 2 seniors. Then, he strode into the Medicine King's palace. Inside, there was an extremely detailed instruction map. Practice area. Elixir area. Archives area. Cultivation area. Residential area. All kinds of facilities could be found here. As long as you could think of it, you could find it here. Chu Yang entered the archives area at once. This was the core area, and also the lifeline of a force. When he entered, he saw a large, empty room. There seemed to be only 5 shelves inside, and each shelf only had 1 piece of jade. It was a bit of an exaggeration to say that it was a room to store ancient books, and it didn't live up to its name. Chu Yang did not neglect at all. He walked to the first shelf and locked his eyes on the jade. There were a few words engraved on the jade. Only a few words. Chu Yang had just looked at it when he immediately felt a majestic saber intent that wanted to cut through the world and the firmament. "I am the Saber King! There is no other saber in the world, the first saber in the firmament. I went to Cheongshao to fight the extraterrestrial demons and threw away the flashy. The legacy of the saber is here. If the younger generation obtains it, the name of the Saber King will never be extinguished. With blood as the guide, the saber energy of the soul will enter the body, and you will obtain my legacy. The legacy of the Saber King. It is the legacy of the Saber King." Chu Yang was shocked. Then, he reached out and picked up the jade. Using his finger as a knife, he cut his index finger and dripped his blood on the white jade. Then, a saber energy appeared out of thin air and went straight for Chu Yang's glabella. With Chu Yang's cultivation, there was no room for him to dodge. Saber. A big word appeared in Chu Yang's mind. With a cursory look, he saw that it included how to use the saber, how to draw the saber, how to cultivate the saber. Everything about the saber, countless techniques about the saber. It could be said that it had everything, and it was full of essence. All the doubts Chu Yang had about the saber in the past were cleared up after a cursory look. As expected of the Saber King's legacy, it is really impressive. This Saber King's legacy is most useful to Wu Shang. When I meet him in the future, I must spar with him and let him inherit this legacy. It seems to be a waste to leave it here with me. Chu Yang took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. He walked to the second wooden shelf. But before he could even reach Shang Xian, a sharp sword aura had already surged toward him. "I am the Saber King! The Saber King! The Saber King's legacy is all here." Chu Yang was shocked. The Saber King's legacy was useful to him, Gu Duxing, Luo Kadi, GMO, Ao Xian and the rest. Then, like before, Chu Yang kept the Saber King's legacy and moved forward again. Next was the Poison King's legacy. Next was the Spear King's legacy. Last was the Medicine King's legacy. The Poison King's legacy is suitable for Lure and Wu Jueqing. As for the Spear King's legacy, only this one doesn't seem to be suitable. I'll leave it to fate. Chu Yang thought as he kept the legacy. When it came to the Medicine King's legacy, Chu Yang finally took it seriously. The Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor finally became a Heavenly Emperor with this legacy. Based on the current situation, the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor probably didn't reach the level of the Medicine King even at his peak. Chu Yang sighed with emotion in his heart. This is really fate and luck. If the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor Zihao had not been conferred the title of Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor back then, but had come from another world, as long as he was given enough time, he would have been able to contend against the heavenly demons with the power of a single world, or even slaughter them. It was a pity that he was conferred the title of Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor. But Chu Yang thought about it again. With the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor's temper, even if he was given the chance to choose, he wouldn't necessarily choose another world, right? His only choice would only be the closest enemy, Purple Cloud's Heavenly. If not, then he wouldn't be the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor. Facing the remains of his ancestors, Chu Yang sighed. Sword Spirit, I think there's a high chance that the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor's medicine spirit was obtained here. Chu Yang finally understood something. And that unknown yet familiar aura just now should be the aura left behind by the Purple Cloud's medicine spirit. The Sword Spirit also realized at once. Yes, there's a high possibility. I think the medicine spirit's original body is very likely here. After the medicine spirit's incarnation disappeared with the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor back then, the medicine spirit's original body here also turned into ashes immediately. But the medicinal power contained in its original body didn't dissipate. This also caused the strange phenomenon here. Chu Zhang speculated slowly. Yes, it should be so. The Sword Spirit completely agreed with Chu Yang's speculation. And the few sworn brothers who went to the disaster with the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor should have cultivated the cultivation techniques of the Saber King, Sword King, Poison King, and the others. Chu Zhang said. Therefore, the few of them could walk the world side by side, establish illustrious achievements, and don't belong to the secular world. Even if they had a certain foundation in the past, the ones who really rose should also be after obtaining these inheritances. Yes. Only this makes sense. The Sword Spirit agreed repeatedly. Not only can the divine palace of the Medicine Kings grow large amounts of medicinal herbs, the space inside is also abnormally vast. Chu Zhang said. Other than growing medicinal herbs, it should also be able to accommodate thousands of troops. Why did the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor place it here but not use it for war? With this space, the battle tactics he can use will undoubtedly be even more marvelous. This is something that I can't understand, the Sword Spirit said. Indeed, I also can't understand this. Looking at the layout inside, I'm afraid that the Purple Cloud's Heavenly Emperor really wants stationed troops here. But why did this treasure end up in this small border town in the end? This reason is really unclear. But... The Sword Spirit hesitated. But what? Chu Yang turned back sensitively. Legend has it that there's a kind of life space which is roughly equivalent to our tribulation space. If one's cultivation reaches a certain level, even if the person dies, the space can still exist independently and return to the place where it first existed. According to ancient legends, this kind of space is called the self-created universe. Chapter 2101. Did I ask you to kick me? Did I ask you to kick me? You bastard, I thought you had grown up, but it turns out. He didn't explain. Lazy Cat might misunderstand that Greasy Cat was unwilling to endure her yelling, counterattacking, and destroying a flower. That was more acceptable. At least, that was something only a man with vigor would do. However, in this situation, it was clearly a mistake made by a good-for-nothing. She was so angry that her liver hurt, and her heart trembled. I asked you to kick the tree. What are you thinking about? You bastard. Greasy Guy's whole body trembled. He took a few steps back and tried to defend himself weakly. But you didn't make it clear. You're responsible too. Obviously, Greasy Cat didn't understand women better than Chu Yang. At such a juncture, he actually dared to defend himself and even tried to reason with a woman? It was a mistake on top of a mistake. He was hopelessly wrong. One could already imagine his tragedy. In a trance, Lazy Cat had already flown up. You didn't make it clear. You were unreasonable and cunning. You defended yourself with me. You kicked me. You've got guts. I'm going back to tell your father. He said you bullied me. He even dared to kick me. I'm going back to tell my father. He said you bullied me. He even dared to hit me. I'm going to kill you right now. You bullied me. You kicked me. A series of sounds of punching sandbags joined together into a single sound. How can you be like this? Is there any justice left? You really asked me to kick you. Even if I misunderstood, you're also partly responsible. Sob, sob, sob. Greasy Cat covered his head with one hand and his crotch with the other. He cried aggrievedly. Sob, sob, sob. You can't be unreasonable. A certain cat was truly a Tai Chi character. Even now, it still hadn't understood the situation and was still trying to reason. It was truly too outrageous. Sigh. Why didn't I discover this before? To think that crooked fish was actually such a pighead. Today, I've really opened my eyes. In the future, I'd better not hang out with him too much. Maybe one day, I'll be led into a ditch by him. Chu Zhang, who was standing outside the courtyard, quietly left. If he were to go in now, Teacher Cat would only be beaten up even more miserably. It would be too horrible to look at. Behind him, the sounds of hard hitting continued to linger in his ears, getting farther and farther away. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Bang. In the afternoon, Chu Yang looked at the bruised and swollen fishy cat. Brother Cat, what's your fiancé's current cultivation level? Fishy grinned miserably. Heaven stage upper level. Anyway, it's definitely higher than me. Why can't my cultivation be higher? If my cultivation was higher, would I be in such a miserable state? What's the use of letting a woman have such a high cultivation level? Boo-hoo! Chu Yang gritted his teeth. Brother Cat, we're all brothers. Seeing you like this, I really can't bear it. How about this? I'll give you something good and let you break through to heaven stage upper level. You'll definitely be stronger than your fiancé. How about that? Ah? Is that true? That's great. Brother, you're my blood brother. Fishy Cat's eyes instantly widened in surprise. If that's the case, I'll have the power to fight back. That's great, that's great. See if I don't let that woman know what it means to be conquered. Come. Chu Yang pulled Fishy Cat into the courtyard mysteriously. At night, everyone came to watch Fishy Cat's process of conquering his ferocious wife after raising his cultivation level. Everyone's faces were tense. No one knew what they were thinking. However, everyone was very interested in this kind of open confrontation between a man and a woman, especially when the man won. Conquer. Hee hee. Everyone, come and learn what it means to conquer. As expected, Tai Batian and Wu Qianqian came together with Cat Xiaolian. Cat Xiaolian noticed the change in Fishy Cat at first glance. The person most familiar with Fishy Cat was still Cat Xiaolian. Fishy Cat stood not far away with his head held high and his chest puffed out. The way he looked at her was actually different from before. He seemed to be very eager to try. You've actually raised your cultivation level? It's actually about the same as mine? A little deeper than mine? Not bad. Cat Xiaolian looked at Fishy Cat in a fuss. Come here. Let me take a closer look. Fishy Cat said in a strange voice. What? What did you say? The atmosphere was full of provocation. Cat Xiaolian was still surprised by someone's improvement. She said casually, I said come over and take a closer look. Fishy Cat puffed out his chest. I'm not going over. I'm not going over. When Cat Xiaolian heard Fishy Cat's words, she was a little hesitant. What? What did you say to me? Fishy Cat became even more arrogant and cocky. I said I'm not going over. Cat Xiaolian completely understood. She glared and stomped her feet in anger. Are you coming over or not? You think I'll go over just because you asked me to? Who do you think you are? I'm not going over. Say it again and you won't come over? I'll tell you who I am. Cat Xiaolian narrowed her eyes dangerously. The atmosphere gradually changed, and the atmosphere seemed to have reversed. Fishy Cat's heart was pounding. He subconsciously walked over hesitantly. He could still be stubborn. Fine, I'll go over. Do you think I don't know who you are? What can you do about it? At this point, Chu Yang and the others, who were in high spirits, were already discouraged. Fuck, this bastard had already softened by 70%. Seeing him step forward, Cat Xiaolian didn't say a word and started to attack him. Fishy Cat fought back and roared. I gave in to you before, and I couldn't beat you. Now I can beat you. I won't give in to you anymore. Chu Yang and the others perked up. Was there a chance? It was rare for Teacher Cat to be so stubborn. Perhaps there would be a shocking reversal? Cat Xiaolian yelled. You dare to fight back? Fishy Cat's arrogance was immediately dampened. He murmured, You hit me and I can't fight back? Is there any justice in this? But his hands had already softened. Cat Xiaolian continued to attack, punching him again and again. He flew into a rage and said, Fight back again? Fight back again? Don't give in to me, fight back! Fishy Cat managed to hold on for a while. Obviously, he could only parry and didn't have the strength to fight back. Good, you still dare to fight back? When I get back, I'll tell your dad. If you fight back again, I'll tell my dad. He'll tell him that you bullied me and let the two of them take care of you. Let's see how you fight back. Cat Xiaolian roared. At this point, Fishy was completely defeated. He actually squatted on the ground during the battle, hugged his head with both hands, and cried. I'm not going to fight anymore. Don't tell on me. Go ahead and fight, just be gentle. Bam, 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 Chu Yang, Lightning Snake, and the others were stunned for a long time. Then they sighed together. Was this a matter of one's cultivation level? It didn't seem to have anything to do with that. This guy was born to be henpecked. There was no cure for this disease. Chu Yang secretly rejoiced that he didn't give anything too good to improve a certain cat's cultivation. If he did, it would have been a waste. It would have been too embarrassing. Chu Yang and the others were dispirited. They sighed and shook their heads, and left the table. They couldn't bear to watch and were even angrier. How could they continue watching? As for persuading them to fight, forget it. We're already thanking the heavens that we didn't get it. Why would we try to persuade them to fight? This was crazy. It had been 3 days. The spatial integration in the tribulation space was still ongoing. He couldn't tell how far it had progressed. There wasn't even much movement. Chu Yang could only pray. Please finish the integration before Mo Yintian's men arrive. Otherwise, I'll be too miserable. What Chu Yang didn't know was that in the dark night, in the distant horizon, there were 3 gigantic flying ships. They pierced through the heavy night fog, and like 3 prehistoric monsters, they were speeding toward the eastern royal heavens. There were at least 1,000 people on each flying ship. On the leading ship, an old man frowned and looked at the night fog in front of him, his face dark. He didn't say a word. The people behind him all had the same expression. That Chu Yang who dared to kill His Majesty must be captured alive. His Majesty said that he wanted him to experience all the pain in the world before he died. Tell me, how long more until we reach the eastern royal heavens? The old man didn't even turn his head and just asked. There's less than 20 hours left. Someone answered. There's less than 20 hours left. The old man had a strange expression on his face. He sighed softly. In less than 20 hours I'll have to do something like this with my own hands. Behind him, a strong man said carefully, General, why didn't you tell His Majesty about this matter back then? This matter is His Majesty's fault. We're not in the right. Why did you? The old man closed his eyes. After a long time, he said, How do you know that I didn't report it? I asked His Majesty to report it, but he didn't show up the next day. When I went to his residence to look for him, I was told that he was recuperating. Do you understand? He's recuperating, not recuperating. The strong man couldn't help but tremble. I saw His Majesty's injuries with my own eyes. The old man closed his eyes and sighed deeply. The able-bodied man shut his mouth tightly. The surrounding people also lowered their heads and shut their mouths. The surroundings were completely silent. Since His Majesty had seen it, it must be true. Who was His Majesty? He was Mo Yuntian's second in command. He was second only to one person and above millions of people. In Mo Yuntian, there was only one person who dared to hit His Majesty. As for who that person was there a need to guess? Even His Majesty was hit because of this matter, then what about the others? There's no need to mention them. Since that was the case, was it important to be reasonable or unreasonable? Chapter 2102. Everyone, return to your posts. 20 hours later, the battle may start any time. Everyone must be prepared and rest in advance. Perhaps it will be hard for us to have a good rest in the following period of time, the elder said slowly with his eyes closed. Isn't it just a mere Chuyang? At most, there's still Mo Yuntian and the remaining people from the 3 sects who went to explore this time. What's the point? We actually need to be prepared for a long battle? Isn't this making a mountain out of a molehill? Someone said disdainfully. The elder looked over coldly. Bastard! That's the Eastern Royal Heaven! Don't you know what kind of person the Eastern Royal Heaven is? If the Eastern Royal Heaven interferes in this matter, he doesn't even need to do it personally. He just needs to give the order, and we'll be lucky if we can escape unscathed. That person shuddered. Yes. At this point, no one dared to be impudent anymore. Speed up! The elder ordered with his eyes closed. The flying boat continued to speed up in the night sky, heading towards a certain place in the dark night. Chu Clan Courtyard. It was still peaceful at this moment. Chu Yang lay on the bed, hugging Tai Batian on his left and Wu Qianqian on his right. The room was filled with light, and the two bodies were filled with seductive amorous feelings. Chu Yang lay on the bed with his eyes closed. However, even at this moment, Chu Yang could faintly feel that there was a huge danger gradually approaching. Would he be able to make it through this time? Chu Yang really didn't dare to say that he could definitely do it. What was the thing that humans feared the most? The only universal answer was the unknown. Although the heavenly demon and the Dharma Supreme were very powerful and Chu Yang had joined forces with them and there was a huge disparity in their actual strength, Chu Yang didn't have a single fear in his heart. Because no matter if it was the heavenly demon or the Dharma Supreme, no matter how strong they had already exposed their strength to everyone. No matter how sharp and strong they were, there were ways to counter them. Only the unknown was unfathomable and unpredictable. Underestimating the enemy would only increase the time limit of one's defeat. Overestimating the enemy would only increase unnecessary pressure on one's side. Therefore, only an accurate assessment was the right way for a qualified leader to do things. Right now, Chu Yang was making such an assessment. He didn't exaggerate the enemy's strength, but he also didn't underestimate the danger that the enemy might bring. At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly felt a burst of turbulence in his consciousness. Chu Yang suddenly felt a splitting headache. He was afraid of waking up the beauty, so he endured it and didn't make a sound. Lord Sword Master, something has happened. Something good has happened, the Sword Spirit said. Chu Yang's consciousness moved, and his mind entered the tribulation space. This time, they entered a vast expanse of whiteness. The change in the environment wasn't the most important thing. Instead, he felt an extremely pure spiritual energy in the air, and it almost suffocated him. For example, oxygen is a good thing, but if you are suddenly given 10 times or 100 times compressed oxygen, you will be suffocated to death. Using oxygen to suffocate to death sounds inconceivable, but it is absolutely possible. Chu Yang was currently facing such a situation. Pure spiritual energy was definitely a good thing under normal circumstances. But if it was too pure and there was too much of it, it would also make people feel unbearably weak. Haha, the fusion of the two spaces has been completed. Now, the tribulation space is upgrading with the help of the Medicine King's space, the Sword Spirit said excitedly. After this upgrade, it will be a small universe like Spirit Space. Lord Sword Master, this is a joyous occasion. Really? Chu Yang felt that he had finally heard good news. It's not true, the Sword Spirit said. It turns out that the origin of this planet has another meaning. The Medicine King's palace didn't absorb all the spiritual energy here. There is still spiritual energy that is tens of thousands of times purer hidden inside. This time, it was completely decomposed by the tribulation space because its grade is lower than the tribulation spaces. The spiritual energy has finally erupted. The fusion has just been completed. In such a short time, the great herbs and the holy crystals have all upgraded by one level. In the elixir garden, the 3 elixir spirits have also upgraded by one level. The other elixirs are also growing rapidly, the Sword Spirit said. Lord Sword Master, this is just the beginning. If there are experts practicing here, they can completely improve their strength during the upgrade of the tribulation space. It can be improved by several times. Improved by several times? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. Is there a limit to the number? How many people can it accommodate? The Sword Spirit said excitedly. In fact, the spiritual energy here is more or less too much. Even if there are thousands of people, it can still bear it. However, because we need to give them another independent space, the number of people can't be too high. It's best not to have more than 50 people at a time. Not more than 50 people. Chu Yang pondered. Yes, Lord Sword Master, it's better to give the benefits to our own people. Even if you want to give it to outsiders, you should give it to those who can be completely trusted. Although in terms of effectiveness, those people in Yuntian may have the best effect, they are still not your real team after all. The Sword Spirit reminded him. Chu Yang pondered. Among his own people, who was there that he could trust? At present, Tai Betian, Wu Qianqian, Madame Mei, Xie Danfeng, Huyan Albua and the other brothers-in-law were definitely trustworthy. They were the standard people on his side. As for the others, Wan Dao and Shi Fuhua were also not a problem. In addition, Duan Sankong, Lightning Snake and the other 2 sabers could also be counted in the list of people he could absolutely trust. As for the others, for example, the people from the 3 big sects who had just come over, he was a little worried. In this way, it seemed that there were less than 20 people who he could really trust. Brother Tiger was also included. Chu Yang frowned. The supply was exceeding the demand. Lord Sword Master, you'd better let them in quickly. If it's too late, I'm afraid that the spiritual energy will be absorbed by the tribulation space in reverse. At that time, it'll really be useless, and we can only hide it. It's better to create a few experts now. The Sword Spirit urged him. All right. Chu Yang made a prompt decision and made up his mind. That night, Chu Yang called for an emergency assembly. First, he ordered Lightning Snake and the other 2 to choose the most reliable and loyal subordinates of his 20 people. Although the 3 of them did not know what the Manor Lord's intention was, they knew that there must be a reason, so they immediately went to choose. In this space, the Sword Spirit used his unique landlord power to quickly establish various independent spaces that were not connected to each other. Chu Yang notified Wang Dao in advance, and asked him to hurry back. Then, he sent Xian Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian inside. Then, it was Brother Tiger, Huyan Albua and the others. Shi Fuhua, Lazy Cat and the others. After confirming that everyone had entered, the Sword Spirit specifically assigned them inside. The Sword Spirit was the one who understood Chu Yang the best. So, he naturally gave the best seats to Tai Betian, Wu Qianqian, Brother Tiger, then Huyan Albua and the others. After that, he gave the best seats to Shifty Thing and Lazy Cat. The next position was given to Duan Sankong, Wan Dao and the others. As for Lightning Snake and the other 2, the Sword Spirit arranged for them to be in a relatively lower position. As for his subordinates, they could only be placed in the outermost position. However, even in the outermost area, the spiritual energy was so abundant that it was unbelievable. Furthermore, it was growing at a rapid rate at every moment. Lightning Snake, Thunder Wild Blade, and the others were ecstatic. Even now, the spiritual energy density was at least 100 times higher than the core area of any big sect or super sect in the world. And it was still increasing rapidly. In other words, 1 day of cultivation here was almost equivalent to 1 year of cultivation outside. And this range was still increasing. 1 day of cultivation here might be equivalent to 10 years of cultivation outside. Of course, the outside world here was equivalent to the core cultivation area of a super sect. The sword spirit was smiling disdainfully. 10 years? 10 years was nothing. When the spiritual energy was completely released, it could increase one's cultivation by several times. They've all gone in. What about me? What did you arrange for me? Chu Yang asked excitedly. You don't have to come in. I didn't prepare a place for you at all. The sword spirit said strangely. This space is in your body. If you don't come in, it's completely inclusive. You can enjoy everything in the space. You don't have to come in at all. Also, can you have some common sense? You're the one who benefits the most from your own things. I don't even want to talk nonsense with you. You're too ignorant and have no common sense. Chu Yang was relieved. He smiled from ear to ear. Like that? That's great, that's great. So what if I'm ignorant and have no common sense? I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm proud. Everyone went in and focused on cultivation. Because the spiritual energy was so rich, they were in an environment where they would suffocate at any time if they didn't cultivate with all their might. The spiritual energy was now so rich that it had turned into water droplets, dripping down continuously. From the looks of it, it might not be long before it forms a solid state. In such an environment, it was impossible not to cultivate with all their might. To put it bluntly, not cultivating with all their might was an act of seeking death. If they were suffocated to death by the rich spiritual energy, this kind of death would be too unpleasant to hear. Chu Yang's situation was the same. It was even more exaggerated. He could clearly feel that his dantian was crazily absorbing the spiritual energy. It was filling up at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked like it was about to be filled. This was no longer the time when he was at the earth or heaven level. Chu Yang was now at the saint level. The amount of spiritual energy needed to fill his dantian was no longer the same as before. But even with such a premise, it was about to be filled up. Chu Yang understood his own situation through inner vision. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Then, he suddenly heard the sword spirit cry out in alarm. What's going on? Why? Then, Chu Yang only felt his mind shake with a loud bang. A mouthful of blood spurted out. Then, Chu Yang shockingly discovered that he had lost contact with the tribulation space. Although the dense spiritual energy was still pouring into his body, he couldn't feel the existence of the tribulation space at all. I have to ask everyone a question, now. All of Chu Yang's escape routes have been cut off by me. Shui Leihan went back. Those who stayed behind didn't understand Shui Leihan's intentions and wouldn't help Chu Yang. I've cut off the tribulation space. I've restricted the tribulation sword. Its powerful sword spirit can't come out. Chu Yang has to face an opponent from the whole world. To be honest, I've already forced Chu Yang into a dead end. To be more realistic, I can't think of how Chu Yang can deal with it myself. When I send out this chapter, I was at my wit's end. Above, if I lie, may the heavens punish me. And I have to break through tomorrow. This stalemate. Do you have any good ideas? Chu Yang's current situation is just like mine. I can't break through. I admit defeat in the monthly votes list. But if I break through, I still have a chance. Chapter 2103. The reason why he came in was indeed because he wanted to take advantage of the situation. He was very familiar with the terrain below, at least much more familiar than the others. He could disappear without a trace with just a turn. He could play hide and seek with the enemy. This was also the most advantageous environment for him that Chu Yang could think of. And it was a chaotic mind. But now, he had fallen into a terrible situation where he couldn't even see his own fingers. This meant that both the enemy and himself were in such a situation. This was an absolutely fair environment. How could the great manner master Chu fish in troubled waters? His cultivation was far inferior to any of the people who were chasing after him. To Chu Yang, fighting in an absolutely fair environment was definitely the fastest way to die. Chu Yang, who had lost a lot of his plans because of the sudden change, could only fall down like a weight in the darkness. Leaving this place quickly was the most important thing. Staying here would only lead to a faster death. However, his cursing alarmed another person. Well, to be more precise, it was actually not a person, but a soul, the divine soul of the calamity. Originally, when the aura of the sword disappeared, the divine soul of the calamity was very happy. Well, I can finally go out for a walk? In the future, I can go out and come in whenever I want. This place was like my own backyard. Just as he was thinking about this wonderful place, a large group of people suddenly came in. Seeing this, the divine soul of the calamity was instantly stunned. Fuck, can't you let me have some peace and quiet? Why did such a large group of trash suddenly come in? Pooh, trash like you dare to set foot in my God Source realm? Are you looking for death? But before the divine soul of the calamity could make a move, another group came in, and then another group, and another group, and another group, and another group, and another group. After these people came in, their actions were very similar. They were all shouting and yelling. Of course, there were all kinds of strange lines. Quick, quick! See where there are good things. Take them and leave quickly. Otherwise, when those super sects come in, we will have to hand over the treasures in our hands. We won't even be able to drink soup. Yes, yes. Quick, quick! Fuck, this is mine. What is this? Why is it yours? Do you think he will agree? Bastard! Take this. Bastard! Take this. Bang bang, bang bang, bang bang. Some people were running all over the mountains, some had broken bones from the fall, some were fighting, some were sneaking around. The tribulation divine soul was enraged. Motherfucker, do you really think this place is ownerless? Can I let you do whatever you want? In his fury, the aura of his spirit instantly spread out. In the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped the entire realm of the divine source. Not a single person was spared, and even the tunnel they had entered was spared. Immediately after, the divine soul of calamity led his zombies to start a massacre. It's one thing for those powerful existences to bully me, but even you bunch of ants dare to rob me. Fuck, do you really think I don't have a temper? The divine soul of calamity had a high level of cultivation, almost at the level of De and Ho. Moreover, this was his absolute home ground. The cultivation of these people who came down first was at least 10 levels lower than the divine soul of calamity. This was simply a one-sided massacre. No, saying that it was a massacre was an understatement. A large number of them fell down. Another large number of them fell down. He had just killed the last few and was searching everywhere for those who had escaped. In fact, it was very difficult to find any more. Because the aura of the spirit had spread out, it was equivalent to the entire realm of the divine source being filled with the purest death aura. This was the most deadly killing weapon. Even if the divine soul of calamity did not do it personally, as long as they were not at the heavenly human realm, they would all die. However, at this moment, a loud curse was suddenly heard. Fuck! What's going on? The divine soul of calamity shuddered and almost burst into tears. This voice was too familiar. Little ancestor! Little ancestor came down again. Oh, I was worried that this little ancestor would be angry because I rejected him last time. How rare, he is really magnanimous. He hurriedly flew over. To living people, the death aura was not only a visual obstruction, it was also an extremely sharp killing weapon. However, to the divine soul of calamity, it was his most basic thing. Because he was annoyed by the sudden change, he did not care about anything else and unleashed his full power. This was actually a very wasteful action. However, now that so many people had been killed by him here, the death aura in this place became even thicker. As long as he could retrieve all of them, the divine soul of calamity would still benefit from it. In this realm of the divine source, there was no place that the divine soul of calamity was not familiar with. In an instant, he had already accurately located Chu Yang's position and floated over. He just happened to catch the great philanthropist Chu who was about to land. The divine soul of calamity was almost a little agitated as he said, "You came down again. Why are you still using the 10,000-pound hammer to fall down from above? I'm being chased now. I don't have to be afraid that I can't escape," Chu Yang said with difficulty. Then, he realized. "Why are you so attentive today?" The divine soul of calamity had a fawning look on his face. "Didn't you ask me to go out with you last time? I've been thinking left and right these few days. After thinking about it, I really feel that following you is a glorious and great way out." Chu Yang was almost choked by his words. "Fuck! What's going on? I'm already in such a miserable state now. I'm being surrounded by the Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun's royal army. My life is also in the line of a breath. At such a time, there's actually someone who can take the initiative to come and seek refuge with me. It's a miracle, no, it's a miracle, and the one he's seeking refuge with is actually boasting of a glorious and great way out. To think that he could still be so flattering, so sincere, and so sincere. This really makes this great village lord's little head unable to understand. Is this guy mocking me because he sees that I'm down and out? It really doesn't look like it. I'm conflicted, too conflicted. It's just that at such a critical moment, Chu Yang simply didn't have the leisure to consider more. His brain was operating at high speed. His eyes turned, and he said, "Seeing that you're so sincere, I'll reluctantly accept you. First, let one of the zombies below you run and move. Let them think that I'm running." "Okay. A piece of cake." The divine soul of calamity was instantly extremely excited. "This little ancestor has accepted me. Wah! My future is so bright, so brilliant and glorious. The first task must be completed well." The pitiful divine soul of calamity didn't know at all how bright the future would be. Whether it would be brilliant and brilliant was absolutely unknown. But right now, it was a huge trouble. The divine soul of calamity was in high spirits. With a thought, a zombie below instantly started running at high speed. Pitter-patter. This series of sounds was extremely similar to a person running in the darkness. In fact, it also seemed to be so. Right at this moment, whooshing sounds rang out in the sky. The divine soul of calamity was shocked. What's going on today? Why are they jumping down one by one? And why are they all using 10,000-pound hammers? Chu Yang grinned. Now I'll have to trouble you to move me to a safe place. Yes. The divine soul of calamity respectfully moved this little ancestor to a corner. It's just a small matter. How is it troublesome? You're too polite. And Mo Yuntian's people descended rapidly. As soon as they came out of the tunnel, they felt endless darkness in front of them. They couldn't even see their own fingers if they stretched out their hands. That was an extremely cold death energy. How could there be such a place? If it was an ordinary darkness, everyone could get used to it. But in the face of such cold death energy, there was nothing they could do. The strength of this group of people was not bad. They were at least at the peak of the saint level. Even if they were corroded by the cold death energy for a short period of time, there wouldn't be any big problem. But how big was the area covered by the cold death energy? Even with their cultivation, they would still be corroded if they stayed in an environment full of cold death energy for a long time. As long as they weren't at the heavenly human level, they definitely wouldn't be able to resist the corrosion for a long time. But to stop moving forward and even retreat? But to retreat was tantamount to disobeying a military order. There was only death for them. Just as he was at a loss of what to do, he suddenly heard the sound of running footsteps coming from below. "There's only one person!" The ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers came to this conclusion at the same time. Then, who was this person? In such a situation, there was only one person, and he looked very flustered. That could only be Chu Yang. Chu Yang was running away. From the sound of it, he could still run and wander around, looking for a way out. His cultivation is not as high as ours, but he can still run after falling. Then what are we afraid of? As long as we caught Chu Yang, it would be a great achievement. In peacetime, it was very difficult to make military achievements. But as long as we caught Chu Yang this time, we would be helping Lord Heavenly Emperor take revenge. It was undoubtedly reaching the heavens in a single step. Everyone didn't slow down, and descended with a rumble. Everyone fought to be the first, fearing that Chu Yang would fall into the hands of others. As they fell, they kept thanking Great General Meng and Commander Meng. He actually gave such a great opportunity to me. If I didn't grab it, I could totally die in despair. One after another, figures fell like meteors and entered the land of cold death at full speed. They entered the land of darkness where one couldn't even see their own fingers. All of them were in high spirits, gnashing their teeth, and smug with success. It seemed that this passage wasn't very deep, everyone thought in their hearts. Then, after a very short time, everyone started to panic a little. Oh my goodness! We used all our cultivation and used the 10,000-pound hammer to descend. This speed of descent was at least 10,000 times faster than usual. In other words, if a certain abyss was 10,000 feet deep, it would take almost 30 minutes to reach the bottom under normal circumstances. But if we used the 10,000-pound hammer, it would be in the blink of an eye. It would be the same time as jumping down 10 feet. How could it be the same? But now, even if it was a distance of 20,000 feet, it seemed that they should have landed. Why hadn't they touched the ground yet? If they fell to the ground at such a speed, oh, so annoying. I uploaded the third update, forgot to click the publish button. I was only focused on writing the fourth update. Now that I've finished writing, I've discovered that it's very troublesome, very troublesome, very troublesome, troublesome. Chapter 2104. The meaning behind the Divine Spirit's words was very clear. I'm definitely not afraid, but I'm afraid that you'll be implicated. If two saint-level powerhouses were to fight, wouldn't a mere saint-level powerhouse like you die if you were to bump into them? Wouldn't you be severely injured if you even brushed against them? Chu Yang obviously thought of this too. He couldn't help but think of a countermeasure, but he couldn't think of a good way. The next moment, he saw a wisp of black gas hovering over a certain place. Meng Wuya shouted. His body disappeared from his original spot and reappeared at the place where the black smoke was hovering. There was another burst of fighting sounds. Then, he pulled out another zombie. This time, he didn't ask again. Instead, he directly crushed the zombie. Then, another wisp of black gas came out. The two wisps of black gas merged into one. It moved faster and floated to the third place. In the blink of an eye, Meng Wuya had destroyed 5 of the zombies. The Divine Spirit's face was a little ugly. Once Meng Wuya killed the first one, the life origin she would automatically come to find its master, Meng Wuya. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape. He wasn't afraid of fighting, but what about Chu Yang? Go out quickly and take all the life origin energy. Then fight with him. He can't do anything to you anyway. Then, find a chance to hide. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, It's not necessarily a bad thing to destroy all the zombies. As long as you take the life origin energy, then it'll be really troublesome for him to find you. The Divine Spirit nodded slowly. Although this was a last resort, it was the best solution at the moment. No, after Meng Wuya had defeated those 5 zombies, he didn't continue to look for the last one. Instead, he faced Chu Yang's hiding place and said indifferently, Chu Yang, I know you are there. Come out, this old man wants to talk with you. Chu Yang's face tightened. Did he really find out? It didn't seem like he was playing tricks. But he didn't find out before. How did he find out now? There are only a few directions in this place. But this divine spirit's life origin energy deliberately avoided the direction you are in twice. So, you must be here. Meng Huiya said lightly. Come out. This old man promises that as long as you come out, I won't take advantage of this opportunity to deal with you. Even if we are enemies, there are some things that must be made clear before we settle our grudges. Meng Huiya's words were very sincere. But Chu Yang didn't dare to believe it. He didn't even believe a single word. At this moment, Yen Russian suddenly said, Chu Yang, come out. Don't worry, I'll be your witness. Since Great General Meng said so, then with Great General Meng's reputation, he would never lie to you. Meng Huiya frowned, then suddenly looked up and asked, The Odes division? So you're Yen Russian? Yen Russian smiled and nodded. That's me. Meng Huiya's Yan's. Meng Huiya's brother. Yen Russian's too. No wonder Yen Russian made things difficult for him, and even defended Chu Yang in front of everyone. Meng. Otherwise they would incur the wrath of the entire Eastern Royal Heaven's heaven and earth oath. Yen Russian's action was obviously a trick. Regarding this point, Mo Yuntian's generals all felt great hatred in their hearts. Just now, many of them were already prepared to kill Chu Yang the moment he appeared. At most, they would be punished by military law. At most, they would die. They wanted this person who had killed too many people to be one step ahead of them. But now, if they acted rashly, they would kill the great general and even everyone in Mo Yuntian. Chu Yang's mind turned at lightning speed. He had already made up his mind. So, he slowly walked out. Since Yen Russian said so, Chu Yang could only come out now. Moreover, he also wanted to see what kind of person Meng Huiya was. From this, he could deduce his character and devise the best escape route. Although he seemed to have the upper hand and was safe, now that his and the Divine Spirit's whereabouts had been exposed, even if the Divine Spirit could escape unscathed, he didn't have the confidence to escape. So, he might as well step down now. Now that he had Yen Russian as his backing, he had the capital to deal with Meng Huiya. The ink cloud guards immediately surrounded him. Meng Huiya looked at Chu Yang with his sharp eyes and said lightly, Blow the horn. Everyone in Mo Yuntian, gather. Once the horn is blown, those who don't come will be executed immediately. Then, the bleak sound of a bugle horn was heard. All the silver-armored soldiers of the Ink Cloud Guard gathered together in an extremely short time. Regardless of whether they were in the middle of a search or in the middle of a battle, they all returned to their teams regardless of whether they were willing or not. Many of them had already sustained injuries and wounds. In such a short time, many people had already lost their lives here. It could be seen that the major sects had tolerated this bunch of people to the extreme. Once they attacked, they directly greeted them with death, without any intention of holding back. At this moment, when these people retreated, the people of the major sects also heaved a sigh of relief. They were still resentful. Glancing at them, they immediately suppressed their desire for revenge and rushed into the mountains to search for treasures. 10 years was not too late to take revenge. Now, it was more important to quickly search for treasures here. But this time, it was definitely not over. You people of Mo Yuntian are so tyrannical, we will remember you. Meng Huiya looked at Chu Yang with his sharp eyes and said lightly, You are Chu Yang? Chu Yang smiled amiably. Of course. How dare you? A general at the side shouted. It was really like thunder piercing the ear. Don't be impatient. Meng Huiya stopped the subordinate and took a deep breath. He said, Then what about the divine spirit of the tribulation? Chu Yang smiled and said, What is the divine spirit of the tribulation? Meng Huiya stared at him for a long time and said, Chu Yang, although I am not going to beat around the bush, since there are some things that you don't want to say, I won't force you. But since you don't want to admit it, then I believe that you have nothing to do with the divine spirit of the tribulation. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. There was a huge trap in this sentence. If Chu Yang denied it, then in a while, Meng Wuya would take action to deal with the divine spirit of the tribulation, and even use all of Mo Yuntian's forces to deal with the divine spirit of the tribulation. Chu Yang absolutely had no reason to intervene, and it was even more impossible to use the battle power of Dongwang Heaven to intervene. But if Chu Yang admitted that the divine spirit of the tribulation was his, then this realm of divine source would change from an ownerless land to Chu Yang's private territory. Then, where did the treasures go? In other words, Chu Yang was equivalent to offending all the super sects in the world at the same time. No matter which of these two consequences, Chu Yang didn't want to bear the responsibility, especially the latter reason, which he couldn't bear. Chu Yang thought about it in his heart, but his expression didn't change. He said, "General Meng, if you have something to say, please say it." Great General Meng's method was undoubtedly shrewd and ruthless, but he misjudged one thing, a very important thing, and that was the strength of the divine spirit of the tribulation. Even if he gathered all of Mo Yuntian's battle power, he still wouldn't be able to annihilate the divine spirit of the tribulation. To put it bluntly, as long as it wasn't a peerless expert at the level of Juni Ho, it was impossible to cause any effective damage to the divine spirit of the tribulation. Even if Great General Meng's true strength was roughly on par with the divine spirit of the tribulation, even if he had the support of Mo Yuntian's army, his overall strength was still far superior to the divine spirit of the tribulation. Once they fought, the divine spirit of the tribulation would definitely not be his opponent, but the ones who would suffer in the end would still be the soldiers of Mo Yuntian. It was precisely because Chu Yang had communicated with the divine spirit of the tribulation earlier that he confirmed this point, that he could be so calm and confident. As long as Chu Yang could ensure his own safety, there was no need for Chu Yang to worry about the safety of the divine spirit of the tribulation. Meng Wuya said slowly, "First, I want to make it clear to you. This time, it was our Mo Yuntian's Taiyuan path that was wrong first. Whether it was the kidnapping of your wife, or you being forced to defend yourself, whether it was life or death, victory or defeat, it was all my fault. It was also natural for you to kill him. This point, I have to make it clear in advance," he said heavily. "I have been in charge of the military for hundreds of thousands of years. Although I have killed people like flies, at the very least, I can still distinguish between right and wrong." Chu Yang's face revealed a heavy expression. "I understand what you mean." "No, you don't understand," Meng Wuya said. "Taiyuan was killed, Lord Heavenly Emperor is extremely furious. So, even if this batch of people doesn't catch you, there will continue to be the next batch of people coming. If you don't die, this matter will definitely not be let go." Chu Yang nodded slowly. "I can also foresee this point." In a distant place, there was a sudden explosion of smoke. Meng Wuya saw it but did not take any action. These words, on one hand, were said for Chu Yang to hear, on the other hand, it was also said for the divine spirit of the tribulation. Don't think that just because you are helping Chu Yang, we can't do anything. Don't think that Chu Yang's enemies are only people like me. Chu Yang's enemies were definitely not limited to these people in front of him. His real enemy was a heavenly emperor, or a world. What kind of huge power was that? As long as you, the divine spirit of the tribulation, are not stupid, you should consider it carefully. The consequences of interfering in this matter. Are you sure you can afford it? The effect of these words was undoubtedly very big. The divine spirit of the tribulation was indeed shocked. In fact, he was even frightened. When he heard it just now, he was so shocked that he could not perfectly conceal his aura, to the extent that smoke burst out. Oh my God! So the little ancestor's enemy was actually Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun. Heavenly Limit Yuan. That was a big shot on par with Heavenly Emperor Shui Leihan of the East Royal Clan. And this little ancestor was at odds with Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, and even wanted to kill him. This was an irreconcilable enmity. I've just pledged my allegiance to this little ancestor, and he's already causing me such a huge problem. When he thought of this, the divine spirit of the tribulation almost wanted to cry. With the power of a divine spirit of the tribulation, to go against the entire world of Mo Yun. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.